Morning, everybody. Welcome to the Memphis City Council committee meetings for the day. Today's Tuesday, March the 19th. This is the Memphis Light, Gas, and Water Committee. Ashley, would you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Cooper Sutton. Present. And Chair Espinoza.
Agenda today. The first item requested by Councilwoman Cooper Sutton is a discussion regarding MLGW late fees. We've got 30 minutes for the whole committee. Maybe we can finish early.
I like that.
Councilwoman Cooper Sutton, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman Espinoza. Good morning. Good morning, President. Just have a few discussion about late fees and just some question that came about through some constituents' questions as well. And it's just a discussion on how this works and possibly maybe doing something new with them if possible. Okay.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here. Doug McGowan, President of Light, Gas, and Water, 220 South Main Street. So I'm going to go through just provide information because I think this will be the first of the discussions. I want to provide all the background. And so hopefully this will give you the background you need to talk about it from there. So, okay, so I'm going to go over, there's a lot of information here, but I do want to say late fees are a common practice. The city of Memphis applies late fees to its property taxes. Shelby County provides it. All utilities use late fees as a tool to get people to pay, mobile phone companies, credit card, internet. Everybody has a late fee. It's just part of standard business practice. Even the city uses it. So there is a group called the University of Tennessee Municipal Technical Advisory Service, MTAS. They are a great source of information. If you ever look for technical research, they can help out. But they have a utility board manual, and even they say that typically utilities charge a 5 to 10% late fee as a catalyst to get customers to pay, and that's a customary best practice. So our rate schedules, when you approve the rate schedule for MLGW and you approve our budget every year, our rate schedule is included in that, and that includes late fees. Our customer care policy has the late fees outlined in there, so everybody is aware of what they are, and you all actually approve them as part of our rates. Now, it's important as we talk about late fees that we do not just simply have a utility bill and a late fee. There's a lot that's in between there that allows customers to have help. So, and I would tell you that based on our analysis of other utilities, we have many, many more programs than other utilities do. The first is that we have actually a late fee allowance, which is a little bit of an anomaly. So if you pay regularly every 3 months, you get a late fee allowance. So that fourth month, if you're not on time, you don't get charged a late fee. You get to use that allowance. If you look at the top of your bill, the very first thing is says late fee allowance, and it can accrue up to 3 of those. So 3 months of good paying, you get a late fee allowance, and you don't get charged late fees if you're late one time. That works really well. We also have, for our customers, lots of cutoff moratoriums, and most of those have been enacted by the city council. If it's a weather-related, we're not going to turn the power off. It's too hot, too cold. That happens in the summertime, happens in the wintertime. And actually, throughout the winter, for folks in certain categories, senior citizens on fixed income, they have a moratorium from December 1st through March 1st, so they have heat all winter long. And so we're not going to cut anybody off simply because they have not paid. And we actually have a holiday bill break for everybody from December 14th to January 14th, and so people aren't cut off there. The other program that we have that's unusual is that we actually allow customers to carry a balance. Customers can carry a balance of up to $199 if they have not been a good customer and paying. They can carry a balance of up to $399 if they are a good customer, and that's before they get cut off. So I just want to say there's a lot of allowances in here that we have for customers. Most of them have been acted by city council. So we have other programs to help people. Plus One helps people with their utility services and helps them to do that. Share the Pennies, a weatherization program. And then we have programs for people to budget their bills. There's On Track, which is if you happen to be late or you need some help paying, we'll give you a time that you can pay that over. Budget billing allows you to have basically the same bill every single month, a flat rate based on your demonstrated use. Other people can help you with your bill through the gift of comfort. You can use prepay. You can enroll and pay. So I got a tax return. I want to pay some of my utilities in advance. You can prepay some of your taxes. That helps keep your bills more predictable. And then auto pay, which for folks who would rather not have to think about the bill every month, it just comes out automatically. So several programs to help customers. Now, you said, Madam Councilwoman, here, how does it work? So here's how it works. The bill comes out on day one, and you have essentially 12 days to pay the bill, and on the 13th day is when the late fee is charged. This is consistent with industry. Other utilities have it within a day or two of us. It's a day earlier, a day later, but that's how it is done. And then that continues, and you'll get another bill the next month, and you don't get, if you don't pay your bill, you don't get a disconnection notice until like 36 days after the first bill was done. And then we don't even take any action on disconnections until 47 days after that first bill hasn't been paid. And usually that's electric. That's why we have the electric smart meters. You can turn them off remotely, but then the gas and water, somebody has to go to the house. So that's how the late fee is applied. Here's how it looks on the bill. If you recall your bill, you look over, you see what your gas, electric, other charges are. Now, there is no late fees on solid waste. There's no late fees on vector control, the fire fees, or anything like that, only on the utilities. And you'll see at the bottom, if you pay on time, it's $172 in this case. If you received after the date, the late fee, and you see what your amount is if you pay after that. So, and again, if you have a late fee allowance and you paid late, that late fee is not charged. So, we call them forfeited discounts or gross versus net payments. The bottom line is it's a late fee, and that is an accounting term because we use that as part of our revenue stream. If we did not, it would just be seen as extra revenue we collected. But because of a business, the books have to balance, you have to account for that up front. You have to budget for what your late fees are, and that actually goes into our budgeted amount. So, and one of the reasons that utilities charge late fees is that we deliver service to you, and then you pay us after you have consumed our service. And so we have to pay the providers before we actually give you the service. So we buy the gas, we buy the electric, and we produce the water. Then we send it to you, and then we ask you to pay after you've consumed it. If a customer doesn't pay on time, I still have to pay those people I bought the gas and the electricity from. And so if I'm not on time, I have to pay more to them. So, just so you know how much it accrues, you'll see here's the amount of late fees we recovered, 14 million, 18 million, and 15 million in each of the last 3 years. That sounds like a lot of money, but again, against a $2 billion budget, that's 0.9% of our overall revenues. And I want you to remember that 0.9% because that's that percentage of our budget, so just a little under 1%. So how does that relate to other people? In the city of Memphis, they collected in 2022, that was the last CAFR we had because the 2023 budget wasn't done yet, but $7.8 million in late fees, which is 1% of city's overall revenue. Shelby County provides a late fee on their taxes, and actually their late fee compounds. So if you get 1.5% late fee, every month after that you get additional late fees. MLGW does not compound its late fees. You have one late fee and that's it. So property taxes are different. I would also call your attention to the fact that not only does the county and the city charge late fees on property taxes, they compound those late fees, and if it gets to the point, they will actually take your property, sell it, and recoup the cost. We cannot do that. I obviously cannot sell utilities I've already delivered to you, so I have no recourse. You see the other examples, Chattanooga, Knoxville, Entergy, they all provide essentially the same kind of late fee, and AT&T, I put that up there as an example. For those folks, you know, you get a flat late fee every month, and then you can get a reconnect charge as well. All right. So if we were to eliminate the late fee, we would have to make up for that in other revenues because that is, like I say, part of our budget, and it would equate to about $3.54 per month on the residential rate increase for everyone. And obviously, 99% of our customers pay on time or use their late fee allowance, and that would mean everybody's rates would go up because of the people who chose to pay late or had no other option but to pay late. So that's the overall background. I know this is the first of probably several discussions. Yes, ma'am. Happy to revisit any of it that you like. I know some of you were coming in as we were talking, so.
Yeah, 1 second. Let the record show the Councilwoman
Oh.
Green, Councilwoman Ford, Councilwoman Walker, Councilwoman Cooper Sutton, Councilwoman Warren, and Councilwoman White are present.
So this was, Councilwoman Cooper Sutton requested this. This is just the background information because she had said she had some constituent concerns. I wanted to provide, here's the background, so we're all level set on what that is. And then I think we're prepared for a discussion after that about how you do this if you wanted to make any change. But key takeaways are it's part of the budget. It's a budgeted revenue item. If you didn't put it in the budget, we'd have to raise the rates to accommodate that. And then what that means is other people who do pay on time will be paying slightly more.
All right, thank you, President. Any comments or questions?
I had a question about the $3.54 per month residential rate increase. How do you all determine how that'll increase? Will it be based on the budget that's already established? And in order to fulfill that space, would it be or is it at a rate of increase that we saw in 2021, 22, 23? Like, how is that, I guess?
So this is not a rate
calculated?
increase, ma'am. This is in 21, 22, and 23. That's how many dollars we collected in late fees.
No, I understand that. What I'm
Right.
saying is the $3.54.
Yes.
That's what I understand to be estimated as to what the rate increase would be if
If we didn't collect late fees.
correct.
That is correct.
So
That
my
would-
question is, how is that calculated? Is it calculated based on a trend from this one?
Yes.
Or was it calculated based on a gap in what now is the budget and what you anticipate to be the budget?
It was based on the trend. So in other words, to make up for $15 million of lost revenue, we would have to charge $3.54 more per month. So it's not a projected budget gap. It's just if you took late fees out, something has to make that up, and that's what that $3.54 for all the customers would be.
So hypothetically, it's a 2023 late fee number divided by.
Yes, by the customer rate.
Gotcha. Any other council members wish to be recognized? And I know there's going to be conversations with President McGowan between now and our next meeting as folks want to work through this and find a way to.
Sure. And I think there's several of these that will have some discussions, provide background, and then we can have a baseline setting of, and then from there we can move forward with discussion about solutions.
Okay, Councilwoman Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I know this is about late fees. Is there a reconnection fee?
We have a reconnection fee? Yeah, I believe there is a reconnection fee.
Is it a flat rate?
Yes, a flat rate reconnection fee.
$25 for a smart
$25 if you, which almost everybody has smart
Flat
meters, so
rate,
it's about
$25,
$25 for reconnection.
And then if you don't have a smart meter, is it less or just no charge?
I think it's more because we have to send somebody out there to actually physically, we charge the rate that it costs a technician to go back out there and turn on, because they go out and turn it off, and they go back out and turn it back on.
And then the fee so that's to pay the technician.
Sure.
So that's not generating any income to offset overhead.
The typical reconnect fees are part of the planned budget, but it's not significant like the late fees are. So, but the actual recovery rate is for the technician with the late fee for the non-smart meters.
They go out, turn it off,
Yeah,
come
they
back,
come
turn
back
it
and
back
turn it back
on.
on.
There's a
That's
charge to
correct.
reconnect. Maybe y'all can get together and dig
Okay,
into specifics. I think.
Thank you.
You're trying to see if they mark it up. Maybe. I don't know.
I'm just getting information.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're
I
happy to
yield the
provide you-
floor.
We're happy to provide
Thank you,
that,
Councilwoman.
the amount that we do every year too, so.
Councilwoman Cooper Sutton.
Yes, I know we're talking about late fees, and this is a concern. It's just a discussion around, we know that a lot of bills are now being estimated, not real. No one is actually getting what they actually owe right now. And so how are late fees added in there? How are you really looking at that? Because you're not giving people what they actually owe. These are just estimated bills that are going out that are just astronomically just huge. And so how does the allowance work, and how are you dealing with the late fees because of the payment plans that maybe that are going forward, because we're not getting real time?
Okay, well, let me address that. So first of all, 99% of customers about 98% of customers are getting charged exactly what their meters say, because it's a small percentage of the meters that are being estimated. We had originally about 38,000 of the 1,114,000 meters that were being estimated. So 38,000 versus 1,114,000 meters. That's just a few percent of meters. Those are the ones that are being estimated. So, and for the ones that where there was an astronomical, we have adjusted all of those numbers back. What we do with estimates, it's a conservative estimate, and it's based on the prior 12 months use, or the prior 12 months where we had good utilization data. So there's several issues that you brought to bear there. Number one, there are some number of meters that are being estimated, but only the service that's not registering. So if it's a gas meter that's not registering, the gas is being estimated, but the electric and the water are not. The conservative estimate is based on a conservative estimate of what they have typically used over 12 months. So the late fee applies based on that conservative estimate or the conservative estimate and the actual reads for all of those. And again, it goes back to that 5% fee, which is on the actual use or the estimated use.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you, Councilwoman. That sounded so great and made perfect sense, but I even want to meet with you about that, just so I can better just slow it down. I mean, I think that's something I want to understand better too.
Okay.
All right, so no more questions. Item number 1, we'll move to item number 2 on the agenda. Thank you for bringing up that item, Councilwoman Cooper Sutton. Item number 2 on the agenda, discussion of ordinance 5897 related to council contract and salary approval limits. This is obviously pertaining to everyone, and it was requested by Chairman Smiley. The chairman's not here this morning, but President McGowan, I will yield the floor to you.
Sure.
Any council members want to speak, just let me know.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I'm just going to provide some information here because I know this ordinance is on second reading. I didn't get a chance to really talk much about this last meeting, so I just want to provide some background information for all of you to consider as you think about this. So I just call this accountability and oversight because that's the words that I heard, and it was manifested as a change in contracting salary approval limits. I sent this information to you. My first message is to you that there is significant and robust city council oversight of Memphis Light, Gas, and Water already. You approved the candidates for my position, the VP Secretary Treasurer, that's Mr. Jeans, and the General Counsel, Ms. Sink. You actually approved the people and the salaries. You approve all the candidates for the Board of Commissioners. There are 7 positions there, 5 voting and 2 at large. You approve the annual budget. You approve utility rates that as the rate-making body, salaries for external hires over $180,000. You approve spending on items over $250,000, and that's more than 150 transactions every year. You approve all of our bond issuances, our bond professional team, our citizen pension board member, the annual pilot payments that we bring to you that are more than $50 million for the city of Memphis, more than that for the overall county. Condemnation of property, contracts for construction of energy systems, and our banking contracts. Those are the kind of statutory oversight that is existing today. More than that, under the previous council, I had committed to delivering the following regular reports. The reliability for our electric system, that is online, available, and updated monthly. The progress on the Way Forward Improvement Plan, that 5-year infrastructure plan that concludes at the end of this year. It's online, updated monthly. Progress on Share the Pennies weatherization program. Progress on tree trimming. Progress on the LED streetlights. Any performance measure that we have that's online through our 4M forum. Progress on our grid modernization. And progress on the Orange Mountain Electric Infrastructure Initiative. All of these have been requested. I have had discussions and presented at least one time to City Council, and I've offered to provide those updates on a regular basis to make sure that you have the information you need and can ask questions about how we are doing our work and delivering for our citizenry and our customers. So the contracted salary approval limits, obviously that comes through the Home Rule Charter, and you can read the language up there. I know you guys are familiar with it. That's where that power derives from. Today, the current threshold is anything more than $250,000 for a contract. council approval. It also, that's the limit that the board has to approve. So the MLGW Board of Commissioners approves everything over 250, and the city council approves everything over 250. And then for external hires, salaries more than $180,000, both by the board and city council. So by way of background, how did we get here? Prior to 1985, the approval threshold was $5,000. Then in 1985, the council actually passed an ordinance that said, in lieu of approval of individual contracts and salaries, the budget shall serve in that purpose. So when the city council passes the budget, MLGW just executes the budget. 2004, they rescinded that approval, so 19 years later, and they instituted a level of $25,000 and $90,000 for salaries. Then in 2010, they raised the threshold to $50,000. 2022, based on the results of an efficiency study by Baker Tilly, and I'll talk about that, the threshold was raised to $500,000 and $180,000 for external salaries. And then about 3 months later, that was rolled back to $250,000, which is where we land today. So that's the history. So the Baker Tilly study that got us that threshold originally. In 2019, MLGW came to City Council and proposed the way forward plan to make infrastructure improvements and asked for a rate increase. That rate increase was disapproved, but during the deliberations, Memphis City Council strongly recommended that MLGW get an independent party to evaluate priorities, processes, and infrastructure needs. The RFP was issued. Baker Tilly was awarded the contract. That contract was approved by the board and by City Council. And they conducted the study from May to September. They provided initial findings in October of 2019 and then came back with a final report in February of 2020. They had some takeaways. The first was those infrastructure improvements that MLGW proposed, you absolutely have to do those or else you're going to continue to be more unreliable. And second, you have to look at your operating improvements, and you can do that by being more efficient. When it came to procurement, this was the Baker Tilly recommendation, not the MLGW. Their recommendation was the threshold be raised to $500,000, that the board make all of those approvals, and that the city council actually not approve those, but get a quarterly report of what MLGW spends. The Baker Tilly study, again, asked for by City Council, contract approved by City Council. This was their report back. So I want to mention this. We do have an additional level of oversight from the Board of Commissioners. Those Board of Commissioners is nominated by the mayor. They're approved by the City Council, and they actually have a duty for the oversight and accountability of MLGW. Contrast this with the City of Memphis divisions, who get an annual budget approved, and then twice a month, City Council approves spending for the divisions. MLGW, all of our spending has to go to the board for approval. Then I bring it to City Council for approval. Our budget has to go to the board for approval, and then to City Council for approval. So I get 2 levels of oversight for every single one of the expenditures that we make. The net result of that is that it's an average, a minimum actually, of 5 extra weeks of execution from the time that my board approves it till I can actually take action. 5 weeks longer than it takes the City of Memphis to execute contracts and spending because of sequential approvals.
Real quick, President McGowan, let's do like a minute.
A minute, okay,
90
here's
seconds, and just so we can have 5 minutes to ask
here's the
questions.
90-second version. The request has been to move it to $100,000 from $250. The net result of that is I'll bring 29% more resolutions to you, but you will have only 1.5% more fiscal oversight. So the money is not the thing, it's the actual number of contracts that will come. That means 29% more administrative things that I got to take to the board, and then I got to take to City Council as well. 29% more things will take 5 weeks longer. We could talk about the salaries, but the impacts are, bottom line is what I said, 29% more will take council action and board action. 29% more things take 5 weeks. It means I have to have higher prices to hold the bids for that much longer. And I guess the external candidates, here's the last thing I want to say. The concern that I heard was we don't want MLGW to be top heavy and impact the customers. If you take a look at, this is an important fact. We keep the rates lowest in the country, but our executive compensation is among the lowest as a percentage of revenues in the country as well. Far below our peers in the Tennessee Valley. Despite being a much, much larger system than them, our rate of executive compensation is significantly lower. You'll see 0.2% of all revenues go to executive comp. Compare that to Middle Tennessee Electric, the next largest electric company in all of Tennessee Valley. 50.5% of their compensation goes to executive salaries. So I'll leave it at that. And again, this is background information for discussion.
Thank you, President McGowan. I've got a question for you. I mean, specifically, just looking at the MLGW fiscal consent for today.
Yep.
Item number 21,
Yep.
as we've all been talking about these things this year, $10 million.
Yep.
Would you mind to please share
Sure.
that with us? And
Yeah, I sent that email last night because I saw that on the consent agenda.
Councilman Warren, Chairman Smiley, you're in the queue.
So this is an extension of the MLGW LED streetlight program. As you know, we move forward with, we maintain all the streetlights. So this will help us do Arlington and Millington. And just like the city of Memphis is paying us back through streetlight fees, they will pay us back. This also funds that phase 2 work that we talked about, where we have to fix the underground infrastructure to make sure all of the lights work. So about $3.6 million for that. The other piece is it includes lights that were not part of the original scope. The original scope were the decorative post-top lights and all the Cobra heads. It did not include those very high masts. If you've been on the highway and seen those 6 lights in a circle that are very high at the interchanges, that was not part of the original scope of the contract, nor were underpass lights, because they're very different style lights, and they were not part of the original scope because they were not in plentiful stock. They are now, so we can do that. And then the last thing is, we actually replaced 1,500 more lights that were in our GIS inventory. Why? The lights were handed to MLGW in 2014 as a council action. The inventory we had is the inventory we had. We replaced 77,300, we thought. When the teams got out there and started replacing, there was actually an extra 1,000 out there that were not reflected in the GIS database. So to convert those, we had to obviously pay money to have those converted as well. So that's what that is about.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. All right. Thank you, President McGowan. And I think this is an example, very quickly, because I want to get to everybody's questions. Item number 21, $10 million. And then item number 19 is an $81,000 ask. So that goes back, or an $81,132.48. That goes back to the explanation of the $250,000, and this is part of a bigger contract.
Yes, so if it's $1 over $250, whether if it's a multi-year contract and we extend, or we want to go another year and it goes $1 over $250, I have to bring it back to you.
Okay.
That's
All
the
right.
total authorization, yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you, sir. Councilman Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. McGowan, could you go back on those slides where you had the 100,000 and 200,000, just the oversight slide? What is the 500,000? How many people we would have?
You would see 25% less resolutions, and
Okay.
there would be 2.8% less fiscal oversight, if you will. So the amount of money is only 2.8% difference. The amount of resolutions is 25% reduced.
And that was the Baker-Tiller recommendation.
Well, their recommendation was that the board approve everything above 500,000, and city council just get a report on all the spending. I understand the city council, when they actually invoked this, put in the $500,000 limit and then rolled it back to 250. So, but that was, again, that was the Baker-Tilly study.
Okay, and on that, as far as operationally, you know, the thing that I heard was 5 to 6 weeks extra time from the time you decide you need to do something until you can actually execute a contract.
Right.
What is that doing for service? How is that slowing service down?
So what it does is it causes us to have fewer bidders because they're less willing to wait that long. The price is higher because they have to hold their price for an extra 6 weeks, and especially in an inflationary period, holding their price means they have to extend that bid longer. And for us, operationally with candidates, if we wait that much longer, again, back to the hiring, some people will take another job in that period of time. So we're seeing fewer candidates that will be willing to wait that extra time period. So, but for contracting, it really impacts us with cost and the number of bidders who are willing to participate.
If you looked at those numbers, what would be the most efficient number that we could use on that slide?
So our
And
recommendation,
still have oversight that you think
right.
we
Well, I think
desire.
First, I think the most important thing is there should be some differentiation between the board and the city council, because today they're both approving exactly the same level. So the board had actually recommended, our board, I did not bring it to you, recommended 500,000 be my limit. The board do 500,000 to 1 million, and the city council do everything over 1 million. That was the board's recommendation. But I think anywhere between where we are today and that recommendation is helps us be efficient.
So if we did 1 million, that gives us 49% less number of things that we're seeing. So that's half of what you're dealing with. And I take it that's going to be everybody who's being hired. So if we go to 1 million, everyone who's being hired obviously is going to be able to do something. How would that, what would it do with efficiencies?
Yeah, that's different from hiring. This is the contracting level.
Yeah.
This is salaries would be different. It would just mean that 49% less things would go to both come to city council, and it would cut that 6 weeks off of the things that come to city council. So the offering has always been that we would report absolutely everything that we do, and accountability would be based on MWBE participation and actual performance. Are we delivering what we're supposed to? Am I getting that curve of reliability back? Am I actually delivering a more modern system? Those are the things that I think.
What would the quarterly report look like?
Quarterly report, we haven't generated, but we have a quarterly report of all of our spending right now. So I actually can deliver that to you, what we spend monthly, quarterly. So it would have every contract, every purchase that we have, what the purpose was. We have a purchase order for everything that has a summary of what it was done, what it was done for, who it went to, who the bidders were if we had to bid it out, which we have to bid out most things, and all the details about the MWBE goals and participation. So it would have a summary of all of that.
But it wouldn't be specific. It'd just be a summary, right?
No, a summary of each contract that we issued. So Acme Company for $251,000 for transformers, successful bidder, 3 other bidders were, and here's the price and here's the length of the contract.
Okay.
We have all of that.
I'm thinking about that as far as having to read that quarterly report with every contract that you did. Seems like that would be more than we would really want to be doing here.
I think what you're asking is, are you reviewing that in city council meeting, or are you reviewing that as a quarterly report?
Yeah, but as we see it, I mean, we're still not seeing everything that you're doing at this point, right? So the quarterly report would be only over $100,000 is what you're saying, or only over 200,000?
I think a monthly, we could get a weekly report that shows every dollar, right? If we requested, I think, Dr. Warren.
We're willing to report everything that we do, all of our procurement.
Yeah, I know you are, but I don't think I'm willing to review everything that you do.
No, I know, I understand.
Okay.
What I want to say is there's no unwillingness to share as much information as you want, to dig in as deep as you'd like.
What I'm trying to do is figure out how can we get you guys more efficient.
I agree.
And decrease the amount of money we're spending to get our contracts and make sure that we have supplies that we need.
Well, my suggestion would be to raise that limit then and give us, at least myself and the board, some more flexibility.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman Warren. We've got Chairman Smiley and then Councilwoman Green.
I'm having a hard time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
It's a little early for me. I'm barely made.
All good.
But I'm glad to be here.
We're happy to have you, Chairman Smiley.
Yeah, we'll see. So, I've heard all of these things, and so I represent Super District 8. Let's talk about Super District 8. If you represent a similar district, who everywhere we go, whether we're in church, whether we're in courtroom, where judges are making jokes about MLGW and robbery or whatever, the concern across our communities are always the same. MLGW. Where you're talking to some of the activist groups, where you're talking to some of the folks who are actually attending the MLGW board meetings, the concerns are always the same. It's MLGW. And what our constituents are consistently telling us is we need to hear more from MLGW. If you listen to this presentation today, you will be inclined to believe that MLGW has no fault, that they have no billing issues, that they're not top heavy, that the majority of the people in the executive division are being paid significantly more than any other entity in this city, you'll believe all these things to be true. But that's not the case. MLGW has had a history of consistently sending out high bills, had a history of protests. If you know Cornelia Crenshaw, I encourage you all to do some research about Cornelia Crenshaw. What this ordinance is giving the council an opportunity to do is do what the people tell us to do. And I always tell people, I think the role of this body is real simple, to bend to the will of the people. And for you to complain about looking at your agenda, you're telling the people of Memphis you don't want to do your job. Oh, I don't want to see that. That's fine. Why are you running? Why are you here? Read it. And for MLGW to take a position that they already have oversight, that may be true, but not oversight who are directly elected by the people. That's our job. Looking at this agenda is our job. Understanding what's happened is our job. There's some argument, and there may be some truth, and I give President McGowan, there's some truth to it may slow down the operation some, but we're not causing to halt. I would argue that receiving a bill that's 3 times as large as your normal bill, that's problematic for them. And what they're saying is, give us more oversight. We need to hear more. And I'm gonna talk about this MLGW physical consent agenda because it's problematic. Last council meeting, this body voted to put an ordinance for first reading on the books to require more oversight. This is what we get in response. We get an MLGW physical consent agenda with an item that says $10 million. Did we talk thoroughly before that, before it being placed on our agenda? There's another item for $5 million. Do we know anything about that? There's another item for $2 million. Did we talk about that? That's in response to this body saying we need more information. Instead of giving us more information, we get a consent agenda with $17 million that we know nothing about. All we know is this one line. I find it problematic when this body asks for more information, and we have literally the next meeting 3 items for $17 million where the elected members of this body who have a responsibility to people to ask more questions, to get more information, we know nothing about this. I would hope that the chairman of this committee would know something about the $17 million that we're about to spend. I would hope that the vice chair knows something about the $17 million that we're about to spend. But I have a sneaky suspicion that no one up here knows about the $17 million we're about to spend. So I'm gonna end it this way. Our job is to go through this agenda, understand what's before us, have a very open and deliberate debate, and discuss the issues, how this could potentially impact the ratepayers for MLGW, but our constituents ultimately. That's our job. If you take any position contrary to, well, it may make the consent agenda a little longer. That may be true. It may add some extra burden to MLGW. That may be true. But it doesn't mean that the ratepayers deserve less information. I would argue, based on the bills, based on the outcry, based on the media reports, they saying, let's figure out more. Let's get more information to determine if MLGW truly is, meeting the needs of the people. I know that there's some council members concerned about late fees. I know that some council members are concerned about disconnections. I know some council members are concerned about the inefficiencies of MLGW. Some council members are concerned, like every council member up here, I know for a fact, has one issue, at least one issue with the practices of MLGW. This is what this body is required to do. We set the rates. Sometimes we can make those rates go up. Sometimes we can make those rates go down. If we voted previously to make those rates go up, If we're increasing the price for the ratepayers, we should at least increase oversight. It's expensive. The majority of people who use MLGW in the city of Memphis, they struggling. At least figure out what's happening. That's it. Figure out what's happening. We're not voting. We don't consistently vote anything down from MLGW. We just ask questions. There's nothing wrong with asking questions. With that, I'm out the queue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councilwoman Green, you were last.
Thank you, Councilman. Can you go back to that slide that Mr. Warren asked you to pull up about the percents?
There you go.
So I would argue the percent in change of the number of resolutions, council members, is the percent of lack of oversight. If we're going to be having 29% less resolutions, we have 29% less oversight. This is our job. The people in this community cannot hire or fire you, Mr. McGowan, or your staff. They cannot hire or fire or appoint the members of your board who do provide an extra layer of oversight. They can only do that to us. And if we're not doing our job, they'll hold us accountable. The number one thing we have as elected officials that is important is public trust. This is a public utility, and it is a monopoly. Our constituents have no other choice. It is our job to provide the oversight people are asking for. I think it is frankly disrespectful to the ratepayers for us to deny them a dialogue. If we don't have things on our committee agenda, they might never see it. They might never know that $10 million is being spent. And they might have insights they want to write to us or call to us or tell us about. But when we just throw it on a consent agenda and send an email the night before, it's not just disrespectful to this body, it is disrespectful to the citizens of Memphis. Mr. McGowan, I have found you to be incredibly knowledgeable about the ins and outs of MLGW, and you have not been there that long. I have found you to be more than forthcoming with every question I've ever asked. I find this problematic when we've had discussions about wanting to have more accountability for there to be $17 million put on the consent agenda without us ever talking about it. I don't think we're asking a lot. I think we're just asking to have the ability to talk about millions of taxpayer dollars being spent, just like we do with the administration in any department they're in. I'm not saying that I don't agree that we should spend $10 million on the LED lights. They have been great. I think they increase public safety, and that may be what we need to do. But I have questions about the money that's going to Arlington and the other places and when we're expect to get that back. And I can't even ask those questions when it gets put on a consent agenda. So I am truly not trying to make your life more difficult. I'm just trying to do my job. And I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Councilwoman Green. I want to make just a quick comment. As the chairman of this committee, I'm actually asked to chair this committee. And in no way whatsoever am I trying to call any council members out. We're all here trying to learn and understand these things and be responsible stewards with taxpayer dollars. On March the 11th, I was just looking back at this. We get explanations for every single item on the consent agenda sent to us every week. On Wednesday, March the 11th, we received an explanation for all of the items on the consent agenda. So I think it's very important that we all remember that. Go take a tour of the MLGW facilities. A big job we sign up for, right? But we get the data and we get the information, and we could call their office 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I think President McGowan would answer the phone. So I just want to share that with you all because I think it would be a little bit misleading for us to lead the public to believe that we don't get this information and it just gets dumped in our laps on City Council Tuesday. It's also on their website, and we get the emails every week, a week before the meeting. So just wanted to share that with everybody. Councilman Warren, you've asked to speak again, and it looks like Councilman Ford, Chairman Smiley,
And Walker.
and White, and Cooper Sutton. So Councilman Warren.
Yes. I appreciate comments from Councilwoman Green and Chair Smiley. I guess the conflict between oversight and efficiency doesn't mean that you don't want to do your job. It's trying to figure out what is the most efficient way to do it. And we actually had that Baker-Tilly study that came in and said what we should be doing is getting quarterly reports. So having, someone come in and look at that, it was an independent, telling us that's what we should be doing and saying that's a discussion point, doesn't mean that you don't want to do your job as a council member. It does mean, however, that there's more than one way to look at this. And so it is a little bit, I guess, onerous to me to have the implication that I'm listening to what Baker-Tilly says, somehow I don't want to do my job as a councilman. So I just want to say, I don't think that's the case. It's a difference of opinion to how you do your job. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'm gonna be a little brief. I heard Councilwoman Green talking about the LED lights. Let me tell y'all something. When I get on Interstate 240, when I get to Getwell coming back west, hell, I'm in the damn dark. Okay? I'm gonna tell this truth. When y'all talking about my infrastructure, when you go out east where y'all live, you ain't gonna have no problem. But when you come to my area, thank you, President, because you're fixing my area, okay? Y'all's area already fixed. I got issues with it. When they put it in, y'all had everything. It's time for us. So please don't come talking about eliminating any money when it comes to my black areas. I got an issue with it. You started them LED lights in West Junction, South Memphis. Some of these white folks, excuse the expression, and I'm not a prejudiced person, okay? Did not like that, okay? But hell, they were lit up. I was in the dark. Thank you for bringing me out of the dark into the lights, okay? Now, if anybody else got issues, I'm gonna be nice, but I can't be ugly. Some of y'all need to read facts before you come and say what you want to say, because, hey, you really don't know what you're talking about, okay? You really don't know what you're talking about. Study it. You mentioned Cornelia Crenshaw. I grew up with Cornelia Crenshaw. I know all about her, all of her history. She never had a light, okay? But it just wasn't about her not having lights. With MLG and W, it was much more than that. Yeah, but I knew her. My dad knew her. I was young, but I followed her. We were out together fighting against a lot of things with light gas and water during those times. But this is a different issue from with her, okay? But I need y'all to start reading, look at it, study it, and if you don't know, ask somebody. Because a lot of this stuff that people are saying is not true, everything else, okay? But still, thank you for bringing me out the dark, and not only that, when the wind blows lightly, my lights don't go off no more. They didn't go off at all out east where everybody's living, you know, and then not only when that, I think we got something else, and I want to explain something else. Okay, when it comes down to, I think we got, talking about the trash again, I got to go back from east to west again, okay? So, hey, I'm gonna tell the story today, so, hey, y'all may not like me today. I really don't care. No, I really don't care because I'm gonna tell the truth. You know, truth hurts sometimes. You know, my wife, let me just say this. Let me tell you something. She texts this every day, prayers. I really got to tell y'all about this one, okay? There's one on here. March 19th. The lips of the righteous feed many, but fools die, wanting wisdom. Think about it.
Thank you, Councilman. We got Chairman Smiley, Councilman White, and Councilwoman Cooper Sutton.
Now y'all know I love a good argument. So I'm gonna respond. This is my rebuttal. All right. So I think there's a significant difference between this body getting information and then our job, which is having a very public discourse about that information we receive. I don't think there can be any debate about that. That's one thing. Two, and similar to Councilman Ford, he speaks his mind, and I tell people, and I was having a conversation, that's one of the things that I love about Councilman Ford. He's gonna tell you what he thinks, he's gonna be done with it after he says what he feels. Yeah, I know I'm similar. So this is what I tell you about that. Our job is to read. But a lot of us, I'm gonna pick on the people that I know I can pick on who won't hate me for picking on. I'm gonna talk about Dr. Warren right now. Dr. Warren is a physician. Sometimes he has to leave council meetings to go save people's lives. Councilwoman Janika White, I call her, she's like, JB, I gotta call you back. I'm in federal court. Councilman Ford, I think he's saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, Fridays is for the dead.
But you know what? Let me stop you. Friday, I get more phone calls on Friday pertaining to the county.
Yep.
And hey, here what you hear is right here. I get at least 50 calls a day at my place of business. So hey, I
Absolutely.
stopped dealing with my dead people to take care of the people in the city of Memphis. And you know what? It's not only in my district, but everybody's district that they say, I don't talk to them.
Yep.
I need to talk to you.
Yep. That's
Okay, I'm through. I'm sorry. But
no, I'm enjoying it.
Straighten out
I'm
today.
enjoying it.
You
I'm
know,
enjoying
because,
it.
hey, District 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, hey, I take care of everyone, and then I try to CC copy and say, hey, this is taken care of. I'm through.
So we are people who are elected into a part-time role, but with a full-time responsibility. Sometimes we don't have an opportunity to read everything or have all the notes or ask follow-up questions. But even if we do that, doesn't mean we're not required to have a very public discourse about things that are coming before us. Just because we know, we cannot assume that the city of Memphis knows. And our job, and I think Councilwoman Pearl Walker campaigned on getting information to the people. Our job is to take that information and give it to the people. And what better platform than this platform we have here? That's one thing. And then there's an argument about Baker taking guidance from Baker Tilly. I'm gonna simply say this. Baker Tilly is a paid consultant. That's one. A lot of times when you pay people, I'm a lawyer. If I need an expert witness, I'm gonna hire the expert witness that I know is gonna give me the answer that I want. That's one. Two, Baker Tilly is not the citizens of Memphis. We are not obligated to put the best interests of Baker Tilly before the people of Memphis. We are elected to put the best interests of the citizens of Memphis. The citizens of Memphis have consistently said, give us more information about MLGW. And then to all my colleagues, you know, because I have a tendency of rubbing some people the wrong way sometimes when I tell you how I feel and be done with it. I just say this: reasonable minds can disagree, but when reasonable minds disagree, this is where I'm going to default to. What are my citizens telling me? That's where I ended. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councilwoman White.
To answer this today. In terms of the 5 to 6 week delay that's been calculated, how do you determine that? Like, is that based on our process, based on you all's process? Can you kind of explain to me the 5 to 6 week potential delay?
So it's a simple math problem. When the board approves an action item that we take, depending on the timing of the ending of the board meeting and the requirements for us to submit it to city council, which is a week ahead of time or so, then you have that week delay there. Then it is meant to be put on the city council agenda. The city council will hear that on the agenda. And so now you're at, 2.5 weeks by the time the city council hears it. And then you have to wait for the minutes to be approved, which happens 2 weeks later. So you have a minimum of 5 weeks from the time the board approves it to get it on the city council agenda to council to hear it, for the minutes to be approved at the following meeting, which is 2 weeks after that. So what we're talking about today is, and I'm happy to follow whatever process you would like, and I would just like to comment to say that we have followed the process as it exactly has been established, and I understand there's been some dialogue, but nothing was formally changed, and so we submitted things into exactly the way we did, and we're happy to put things on the regular agenda. In my 13 years of experience with the city council, we have had only a handful of items on the regular agenda and in committee for discussion, but if that's the will of the body, I'm happy to share that. But I will say that that if the intention is to be heard there, and then also, there's a potential for delay there as well. So, but we're happy to share the information, but I'll follow the process exactly as you proscribe it, which is exactly what we've done with the items that we have today. So, but that's how you calculate the 5 weeks, is from the board agenda, the timing of getting it on the city council agenda, the timing of the 2 weeks later for the minutes to be approved.
Good, Councilwoman.
So that's based on it going to our committee, and then you said, so would that be the same as if we did it in committee and did same night minutes? Or how would that work?
So what we typically do is we put it on the consent agenda at the main council meeting, and then we wait for the minutes 2 weeks later. So for it to be final. So that if it was heard in committee and then heard at council the same night, and then the minutes were approved 2 weeks later, there'd be no change in the process. The issue is just having it heard in committee or heard at main council as a part of the main agenda for dialogue. So there's a couple of ways that you could do that. Consent was for expediency, and as was the customary practice for that, because it had been some review before that.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Okay. Councilwoman Cooper Sutton.
Thank you, Chair. You and I have been talking a lot. We have been talking about streetlights, and it's been in predominantly poor areas where these streetlights have not been working, in the infrastructure as well. And my question is, we know that Memphis has an infrastructure problem.
Mm-hmm.
We are very, very, very clear and aware of that. But what I'm trying to understand, you have a project manager, am I right?
We do.
Okay. And your project manager goes out and comes back with information saying this is what's happening. The concern I had, and you fixed it, and you sent Councilwoman Eastern Thomas and I a very long email. But the problem I have, if the constituents, or if I hadn't, I think that was my second request and my second ask in regards to Frazier and what was going on out there. How are you all tracking these issues? Not one, but I've had to have about 3 conversations so far that I know that these LED lights are not sufficiently or efficiently working. And so I'm trying to figure out, how are we tracking this? Because there was so much infrastructure needed out there in Raleigh. The lights were up, not working, totally dark. No one attended to it. No one addressed it until our constituents reported it and called me over and over and over again. So how do we get, and I'm trying to word it because I'm kind of just frustrated and pissed off at the same time. Constantly having to do this and constantly having to hear from the constituents. How do we get good quality people to do the work, to find these findings, and we address them properly? Just not putting up LED lights all over the city, and none of them are functional, especially in our communities. We know that this here, you said it was 2,000 of new underground wire, some new poles and risers, new street crossing, underground connection, and more than 250 overhead streetlight feeds. Our streetlight engineer completed a redesign, and our crews are on site, and you did, and it was an extensive repair. The thing was, you put the lights out there, and they never worked. And we knew this. We funded, the money was there. We knew we have an infrastructure problem. How do we get to a place that we can address these issues and not continually having the same issues over and over in our poor, poverty, low-income communities that don't have lights? How do we overcome this? And as I'm going to echo what Chairman said, now we're at 17 million and ask for infrastructure for Arlington, Millington, and you said this was not even the original scope. How did we miss this?
Okay, so there's a lot of questions there. I'll answer the first one. The lights are, there's about 2,000 of the LED streetlights that we put in that are not functioning. As I mentioned before, other cities have had up to 10%, which means they would have had about 7,000 that are not functioning because of underground LEDs. The lights that you mentioned on Thomas were not working before we changed them to LEDs. That was an underground infrastructure, which we knew needed that repair. We had approximately 1,600 street lights that were in the queue for repair when we did the changeover. We typically have about 1,600 burnouts and knockdowns every month with our old high-pressure sodium, so our team is working hard to do that. We've hired 2 extra contract crews to come in and help fix the underground and fix those things. We have more contract crews coming. So yes, we are on a path to repair all of this, but this is not the first rodeo with streetlights. We have had many streetlights out for a long period of time, and that is part of our overall infrastructure improvement plan. And again, I will say it's been all over the service area. Our team has a list of all of them that are out, and they are working through that list. They're working I prioritize the neighborhoods versus the interstate, prioritize long strings versus individual outages, and so I'm happy to provide an update at any time on those. But we are on a path to improving the infrastructure because just like the electric infrastructure, for far too many years, it was untended and we weren't doing preventative maintenance and replacements on time, and now we're on a path to be able to do that. So on balance, we're going to be in a much better place as we get through this phase 2. I'll come back to your question about Arlington and Millington. I'm happy to have a larger discussion about that. Point well made. They're doing exactly the same thing the city of Memphis is doing. We issued $42 million of bonds, and the city of Memphis is paying MLGW back through the streetlight fee. That's what Arlington and Millington are doing. They're paying it back through the streetlight fee. But the majority of this, $3.6 million, is to correct that underground infrastructure that's not working, that's allowing the lights not to work. So, and to replace, to the inventory question, Millington and Arlington were always part of the plan. They just had a choice whether they wanted to do the path we had, pay through the streetlight fee, or if they wanted to pay cash. Bartlett and Collierville paid cash for their streetlights, so we're not financing that. They're just getting a reduced streetlight fee every month for the electricity. And the ones that were not in the inventory was because there was not an inventory of LED streetlights at the beginning to do high mast or do underpass lights. They just were not in existence at the time, so we couldn't put them in the scope and wait for them to get here. So now that they are available, we can begin doing that work.
I would like for you to provide that information.
Sure.
In the neighborhoods and where we are and what it looks like, and hopefully we will get some good results.
Yep, that's our aim.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Two left in the queue, Councilwoman Walker and Councilwoman Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I would like to thank Chairman Smiley and Councilman Ford for holding space for Cornelia Crenshaw. If she was living today, she would definitely be known as the Mid-South's first energy justice advocate. She did live in her home for 10 years without utilities in protest to some things going on with MLGW, and it is because of her we are allowed, residents are allowed, ratepayers are allowed to ask for an extension on their utility bills. And this being Women's Month, I just wanted to add a little bit more to her reference her legacy in a little bit more detail. So when you were here, I believe it was last time, you apologized for something. Do you recall that? Was it for not bringing Ms. Madden to our attention or for including it on the consent agenda?
Yes, because I had that followed the process there where it was the city council has the oversight. The consent agenda was typically where things had been placed. We had been through a significant amount of things. You guys were a relatively new council. It did not dawn on me that Mr. Young, who was my predecessor, there were two positions that the person didn't need to be approved. The salary did, but he brought them before the council to have them introduced. And so that, again, I apologize for not providing that information ahead of time to y'all.
Okay, but you were making the point that we consistently get the information ahead of time.
Yes, and that's part of the discussion that he and I had after the first meeting as well. And I made some notes and I can make some comments. Now, I want to thank everybody on the council because we sign up for this job and it's a big job and everybody's trying to do the best they can with the time they have and their full-time jobs to be stewards of this money. So I will yield the floor back to you, but very quickly, I've gotten a commitment from Ashley. We started sending out the emails, again, I just used the March 11th example, for all of us to have the information, but I think it gets buried in all the other emails that we get. So I'll commit, and Councilwoman Walker, as the Vice Chair MLGW, hopefully you'll agree to pull that out. We'll create a link on our website. I believe it's already on their website, but we'll create a unique link on our website to where the public can see all the details that go into the consent agenda. So sorry for the long answer, but yes, we get those now the week before council meetings.
Okay, no problem, and thank you for that. So Baker Tilly, being a consultant, I'm not particularly impressed when we hire consultants for, and I understand the process. We have processes and procedures, but just because a consultant, the information is via a consultant, doesn't make it more valuable or impressive necessarily, because the GDS consultant, when they made their presentation based on their study, it was skewed, it was imbalanced, it was partial toward a particular energy provider. So I just wanted to make a note of that. And also, for those of us who were present at the GDS presentation, if you have limited information around a topic, you can easily be impressed and or swayed due to your lack of information and understanding based on the content shared. Also, as it relates to the vendors and the timeline, Councilwoman White made reference to this in another question. But can you go back to the slide with the timelines and the amounts?
Let's see.
It was early, yeah.
I think it's down.
You just passed it.
Oh, I did?
It was the dates. So you were saying the turnaround time, we need about 5 weeks.
Oh, that's down here, yeah.
When those amounts were different, did we still?
No, it's still 5 weeks.
It's still
just
5 weeks.
Anything that has to go to both council or to the board and to council is 5 weeks, just because of the timing of getting it from the board, getting the minutes approved of the board, getting it to the council agenda, getting the minutes approved from city council. So that's just a nature of the consecutive processes. It has nothing to do with the limits. So whether it's one contract or 1,000 contracts that have to have dual approval, that's the nature of the beast.
So these vendors, all of the vendors that we deal with, they have to, it's like having a gun held to our heads, and if we don't respond in a certain amount of time, they're going to go on and do business with someone else, because that's how it came across. You said we had to have a certain amount of time to respond.
No, what I say is that we typically will have fewer vendors who are willing to bid or to hold their price for that extended period of time, or they'll just add a little extra funding to the end of that to make it a little bit higher price because of the extended time for the approval of the contract.
We are a monopoly. They're not going anywhere else.
So all of the vendors take this position.
I can't say all, and I can't say none. I'm just saying that is a trend that we see, is that typically it would be add a little bit more, or fewer vendors would be willing to bid.
So in that process, and I'm going to wrap up soon here, as it relates to vendors, there are vendors who would lower their price to get the contract and be willing to wait. In business, I understand business. I don't know everything about business and about this process, but I just have a problem with saying that if we don't respond in a certain amount of time, they're going to go up on their price and there are less vendors to choose from. Well, then if that's the case, maybe we should go with those vendors who are left and be okay with that. So sure. I can follow up with you on that, more on that offline. And in closing, I did request that President McGowan come today and give us an update on the EP corridor in front of the guest house. And you did send me something in an email, and I appreciate that. The street has just been really thank you. And it is a public safety hazard because you're driving this way, then you have to go this way to avoid that pothole that you're very familiar with if you're going that same way every day. And then you come back over because the lanes have changed due to the construction. And I would just like for that to be complete for people who not privy to the information that he shared. In addition to the residents of the area, you know, Elvis Week is March, but Elvis Week is in August, and it'll be here before you know it. And that is part of my concern. But thank you for the information. Thank you for responding. Sure. And I yield the floor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. One last thing. We're 42 minutes late. Oh, wait, what'd you say? Councilwoman White. Two more things. Councilwoman White, go ahead.
I don't have anything for President McGowan. I just wanted to make clear that we don't have a March 11th email.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Okay.
For the record, to correct Councilwoman Green. So here's what I would like to commit to the group. So we get an email on Tuesdays. March 11th was a Tuesday. So y'all send us an email. The administration does the same thing, right? And we get all these documents for all these things. We sent it to you, Councilwoman Green, on last Friday. So in the spirit of all of us trying to be transparent and know what we're talking about when we get in here, I need to correct the date. So you got it on the 15th. And I think what Ashley and I have just committed to do, and Councilwoman Walker, I'm sure, we'll just pull that and send that to everybody on the actual day instead of compiling it and sending it to everybody at once. So that just may help a little bit. I think we obviously want to improve some processes here, all of us do, including myself, so that we're good stewards with the MLGW consent
and just
agenda.
to be clear, I read the email, I read this stuff, and I attend the MLGW meetings. I am very involved in this, and I do my research and due diligence. That is not the same as the public being on notice and us having a dialogue back and forth here in this forum. That was my point, it's disrespectful to the citizens who want to have this discussion happen in a public forum. It's not that I didn't do my homework. I
Absolutely.
got it, I read it.
You do, and I appreciate you always, Councilwoman Green. All right, anybody else?
Mr. Chair, could I just add one thing?
Oh, my goodness.
So, sorry.
Oh, my goodness.
Well,
So
there's
close.
a lot there. So I want to say first, with respect to tonight's consent agenda, there was a lot of differing opinions I heard. I know everybody has 13 strong opinions about more oversight. I heard Councilman Carlisle say, well, let's make everything over $1. I heard have some discussion. So there was no formal change, so we followed the normal process. There's no intent to say, I want to try to put $10 million on there. We followed the normal process. I'm happy to have more discussions with you all about this, but I don't want to be taken tonight as like, well, we just talked about this. You're trying to put more stuff on there. Until something has changed, and by the way, I want to say, I can't read everybody's mind. Councilman Smiley Chairman said, well, we have a 1 million, a 5 million, a 10 million. It's like
10, 5, 2, 17 million.
So which one, what level would you like to have in committee? And if we just set some of those things into place, I can respond to them and do them. But tonight is just about following the process that has been in place since I've been involved with city government in 2011. And so I want to be sure that I'm not trying to do anything that is outside of what we've done until we decide how we want to do it. So the last thing I'll say is too, I am willing to be here, and I had this slide up here specifically for the kinds of oversight that I'm willing to do. And I don't take this lightly. There's statutory oversight, and I committed to all of these reports. Now, it was not this council, it was last council, but I'd like to go back to last council in the fall. Routinely, the MLGW committee was not on the agenda all throughout the fall because there were other things that we had to get to. I was ready to report on all of these at every council meeting, and my committee got canceled. During this council, we've had several committees. During this council, we've had several canceled as well. So I need to have the time to be accountable to you. I need to be able to have the time to report out.
I believe you can count on this
Thank
body
you.
being diligent and
Absolutely.
having you come down.
But I just want to make,
There's no doubt,
I just
yeah.
want to be clear. There is no lack of willingness here to share information. In fact, I have so much that we're 48 minutes over time now. So,
And I love it, actually. And I love Councilwoman Green.
So-
I just want her to know that
so
publicly.
anyway,
I think it's gonna be talk too much.
but anyway, I appreciate the opportunity because our folks do great work, and we are going to make this better for our community together. We are on a path. What you guys have done with us, we are on a path to make this again the pride of the community. The LED streetlights are a start. Are there some problems? Yeah, we're going to get through them. Is electric reliability a problem? Yeah, but it's getting better every day.
Thank
So
you.
I appreciate the partnership, and I want to continue to work with you to share information that's important for our citizenry. Thank you.
President McGowan. Councilman Warren, you are next.
And
you're late. Okay, you're 45 minutes late. So let's
Okay,
get back on track.
thank you,
with your
Mr. Chair.
committee. All right, meeting
I
adjourned.
think we've had a wonderful discussion.
Thank you.
to order. It's now 8:20. Could we please have a roll call?
Councilwoman Easter Thomas. Councilwoman Logan.
Present.
Councilwoman Swearingen Washington.
Present.
Councilman Smiley.
I'm here.
Councilman Ford.
President, yeah.
Councilwoman Cooper Sutton. Councilwoman Walker. Councilwoman White. And Chair Warren.
Also present, we've got 5 items on our agenda today, colleagues. Item number 1 is a presentation from the University of Memphis, Tennessee Office of Resource for Assistance in Community Training on Environmental Justice. All council districts requested by me, and I'd like to turn this over to the University of Memphis. If you could please give us your name and address for the record, and the floor is yours. Get it close to you.
Okay. All right. I'm Turan Jia. I'm professor of environmental health from the University of Memphis.
I'm Blake Mosley. I'm the coordinator for this office at the University of Memphis.
All right. Dear committee, thank you for this opportunity. And I'm the professor of environmental health. I'm leading this office, Tennessee office for this center called the Resource for Assistance and Community Training in Region 4 on Environmental Justice. It's part of the US EPA's TIC-TAC program. A brief introduction of EPA EJ TIC-TAC. EJ TIC-TAC means Environmental Justice Thriving Communities Technical Assistance Centers program. It's nothing to do with that social media platform. And the goal is the goal is to provide free technical assistance, training, and capacity building to support communities, in particular those low-income, disadvantaged communities for their needs and to achieve environmental justice and to build capacity. And in this nation, there are 16 TIC-TAC centers, 3 national centers, and 13 regional centers. And we belong to Region 4 TIC-TAC center. And the Region 4 TIC-TAC center is led by a research institute, a Research Triangle Institute, RTI, located in Research Triangle, North Carolina. And there are 8 states. Tennessee is one of those, and the University of Memphis, basically me and my team is leading Tennessee office for this center. And we name our center the Resource for Assistance and Community Training in Region 4 on Environmental Justice, or Region 4 or REACT for EJ. This center provides training and technical support to communities that are working towards environmental justice through our network of state and national partners. Of course, in Tennessee, we don't have tribes, but there are also 6 national recognized tribes that are also part of this network. Regarding the services we provide, it's called the technical assistance services. That's a process we provide tailored support to organizations and communities to address a specific need and to build a capacity. There are 3 categories of services we provide. Basically, we make connections, we provide training, and we provide resources. Make connections means in response to any request for EJ technical assistance, we can connect the communities or community organizations to funders, funding opportunities, experts, government agencies, and academic institutions. We can provide training specific to certain grant opportunities and navigate the lay people or the public through the EPA's websites And there are online resources. We can provide one-to-one training or workshops. And we also provide the resources regarding different types of information and documents. And some examples of technical assistance are like we can identify and help communities apply for different grants that can address their imam justice concerns and issues and help them navigate online government systems like EJ Screen and climate and social vulnerability systems and connect them with experts and also providing different training and resources. And all these technical services are free, no cost. And any communities or individuals or organizations, even companies, businesses, they can make the requests for technical assistance through this website. This is www.reactforej.org. And you can just, there's a very easy online request that's a text box. You just put your name, your contact, and a request, and it will respond to you. And we can address any environmental issues, including air pollution, water pollution, soil quality, noise issues, personal exposure to environmental hazards, and climate change, resilience, and clean energy transitions. And I think that's a brief introduction to all our services. Any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. Can you give some examples of local groups that you're already helping?
One example is the MCAP. One time we helped MCAP apply for a grant, submit an application to EPA. Basically, where we help them go through the grants.gov system. The major concern from EPA is most low-income communities or those small communities, organizations, they don't have the capability or don't have the staff or knowledge, skills to apply for grants. There are a lot of grant opportunities, but they just don't know how to navigate the system.
How many organizations are you actually helping at this point in our state?
We just started. I think we've only helped. I think 4 or 5 so far. We've got only 4 or 5 requests, including some government agencies.
Okay, and as far as businesses, have you had any applications from businesses for assistance? I mean, I'm looking at this clean energy transitions. I'm wondering, are there grant programs available for new businesses as far as solar energy and doing things like that as they do their build out?
I believe there are opportunities. I think we still need to make the word out so people know this resource. They can make the requests, and even it's not just me. I'm backed up by a team at the University of Memphis, also the team from the RTI and the national TIC-TAC centers. If there are these requests we cannot handle locally in-house, we can forward them to the national centers, and they will provide the responses.
Thank you very much. I wanted everyone on the council to know this was available, and we've got contact information here. You may be hearing from a number of us as we run into constituents that have needs. Councilwoman Walker.
Yes, thank you so much, Councilman Warren, for bringing these people forward today. I just want to go on record and share that I am the ECJ Chair, Environmental and Climate Justice Chair for the Memphis Chapter NAACP, and the Civic Engagement Coordinator for SACE, the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy, Knoxville, Tennessee. I'm so glad that you all are here today to share this. This is very important. This is very valuable to our community as well as the whole region. I am going to follow up with you online. And if you don't know who all the local players are, it will be my pleasure to let you know about the other organizations in addition to MCAP. And I think the Sierra Club, their brand is particularly strong because they've been around a while. But I look forward to following up with you online. And again, this is wonderful, so wonderful. And thank you again for coming. I yield the floor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Cooper Sutton.
Thank you, Chairman Warren. Thank you for this presentation. This is so very important. I'm just going to echo what Councilwoman Walker said. We were in a meeting last night and we were talking about all of this, the EPA and everything that's going on and with the solar and everything, and just trying to educate and put knowledge out there. And what's so impressive is when you talked about the grant. But what's so very disheartening is people don't know how to access grants and the monies that are out there that are just lingering out there, and we don't know how to access the grants. So I will be, as with my colleague and with my Councilwoman Walker, reaching out because I would love to know more about this and how to get, you mentioned low income communities that are impacted so with the environmental change and things that are going on, and not enough knowledge being shared to advance us because things are changing. And so thank you, Councilman Warren, for even having this presentation and getting them, the University of Memphis here. So I will be reaching out, and thank you, especially with that grant opportunities, with the funds and the monies that are out there. And Memphis not knowing how to access it and get it, so we can do better.
That's exactly the focus of this program. Actually,
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Good,
And
good.
so thank you, and I yield the floor.
Thank you, Councilwoman, and thank you for your presentation today. We look forward to being able to work more with you. And go Tigers.
Good thing. Thank you.
Item number 2 is a discussion of repairs to the pavilion of Martin Luther King Jr. Park, District 6, Super District 8. Is requested by me after receiving a letter from a constituent. We have Mr. Walker present, and Councilman Ford, do you have any comments early on?
I think they'd be able to answer all the questions.
Yep. Very good.
We've already talked about it, yeah.
I just want council members to know that this was a situation to give Mr. Walker time to talk to us about his department's philosophy about how they're going to move forward with this type of repair in other places in the system.
I didn't have so much stuff in my pockets, we'd already be going. I apologize.
It's okay.
Nick Walker, Parks Director, City of Memphis, 2599 Avery. And there we go. All right. So real quickly. There we go. Okay. So just to set the backstory on this, we received an email at the same time that City Council did, thanks to the lovely click, send an email to all of council button on the website, which is, I mean, I'm joking, but it is actually a wonderful feature because a lot of times, even though we heavily advertise on social media, every time we have a public engagement, we talk about our website and the ways to contact us. I will be honest that a lot of times complaints come to the City of Memphis Council before they do the Parks Division. And in this case, although we were aware of it, this was the first time that I was made aware that this pavilion was in disrepair. So just a overhead shot because the landscape architects love drawings. This is a drawing of one of the pavilions at Martin Luther King Jr. Park. There are a lot of them because it is a regional park. It has several rentable pavilions and facilities. It and Dahlstrom are both large, beautiful parks in South Memphis. And so this is the layout. You can see here that this winter, one of the severe storms that came through did some serious damage to this pavilion. This is a large pavilion. There, as you can see from sort of the number 6 shot there, it's in 3 segments. And again, I'll go back to this last, you can see it's set into 3 sections. There are sets of picnic tables under the 2 sort of eaves, and then you've got a main large open area in the middle. The damage was done to one of the side sections. It caught it on the edge of it, but you can see from the picture down in the bottom right there, it's kind of the best overview shot of it, that it was in serious disrepair. So how we got where we are is that there are two groups that oversee the maintenance of large facilities inside of our parks. That is the planning department, who usually does new construction and large projects that rise to the level of a capital expense, and park operations, which does minor repairs. This is not minor repairs. So the three groups, the city parks administration, planning, and park ops, met out at this site, had a conversation, said, man, this is too expensive to just fix. We're gonna have to figure out a way to do some serious repair on this, and then walked away, each thinking that the other was going to take care of it. Long story short, we got an email from a constituent who was very upset about it, rightly so. At this point, the COO's office has signed an emergency memo allowing me to bring out a construction company to essentially sever the limb right there at the part that there is damage on, take the existing structure, use it to patch the roof, and then draw up plans once we were able to procure the materials that made that pavilion a few years ago and make the repair. So we're really doing what we should have done in the short term now, and the planning department is in the process of procuring the goods and materials in order to make a long-term repair. So it will look better by the end of this week or next week at the latest. And again, when your constituents bring these things up, feel free to have them directly contact my office, because with a large division with 162 parks, sometimes mistakes happen.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Yeah, I thought this was just going to be Mr. Adams' problem. So
Yeah.
That's okay. Councilwoman Logan, you had a question.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. I wanted to know, I heard you mention that this is a regional park. This is not on the issue.
Sure. You're fine. You're fine.
But wanted to know if there's some funding, or is there a way to elevate the parks that are regional parks or larger parks to receive federal funding or regional funding? I hear all the time that we're a regional hub in a lot of areas. So are we looking into those types of funding for parks like this that's designated as regional?
No, and it's a good point. I will say that actually that is something that Memphis Parks has made an intentional effort to in the last few years. Because it's going to be, you just had someone come up and talk about grants. Grants are really the best opportunity to do that, both state and federal grants. And in our case, most of the federal dollars come through TDEC. And so they're really the same thing. State grants and federal grants in Tennessee, TDEC has to apply for federal grants on our behalf. So we've worked really hard to have a good relationship with the TDEC West Commissioner and with the TDEC's office. And as you're aware, parks like Kennedy Park, MLK, Audubon, we often do try to leverage grant funding, and so it's a constant focus. And we're also really grateful for, in your other capacity, and Friends of Kennedy Park, when we're made aware of opportunities that we may or may not know about. So yes, but a lot of words to say yes.
Is there anything that we can do as a council or as individual council members that have regional parks? I know we've talked about the group, the national organization where the 12-minute parks are having a park in every district. Are there things that we can do to support our parks being raised or elevated on a level that will pull in those types of dollars?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and this is the good news, is that all 13 members are huge advocates of Memphis Parks. Word of mouth. When you have your newsletters, when you have your opportunities to speak to constituents, push them to memphisparks.com, let them know about the activities that are going on. Spring Break Maine was this last week. It was huge. We had more than 3,000 kids show up at the 3 events that we had. But just making sure that people are aware of the opportunities, because we work really hard to put them out there, and there cannot be enough megaphones highlighting the programming that we're doing. That creates the visibility that helps us have the community support to get those grants.
So that's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Are you saying that the numbers, the more the parks are used, the more money you get? Okay, so we're collecting that data, right? And that translates into federal dollars. Okay.
Yes.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. Are you
Councilwoman Walker, then Cooper Sutton, then Councilman Ford.
Thank you. I had two questions. For the record, could you explain what is meant by regional park, and of the 100, I think you said 62 parks, how many of those are regional?
Most of the regional parks, so it is an internal classification. We have 4 different types of parks. We have regional parks, we have neighborhood parks, we have special use parks, and then we have pocket parks. That's it. And so there's no great divination to it. But realistically, the regional parks that exist in the city are going to be Shelby Farms. It's going to be Tom Lee. It is going to be Audubon, MLK, Kennedy, Rodney Baber, Dahlstrom. Overton is also, yes, it would be a regional park. And the idea behind it really is when you look at the traffic that traffics that site, do they arrive by foot or do they arrive by car?
Okay, thank you. I yield the floor.
Thank you, Councilwoman Cooper Sutton.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councilman Logan, for your good questions. And that grant was one of the things that I wanted to piggyback off of due to my prior trip that I had and the importance of us in the city of Memphis being aggressive on applying for these grants and these federal fundings that are out there. The monies are out there. And I want to know, you said your relationship with TDEC, right? Is there someone specifically in that office that you all have built a relationship that can aggressively go after these fundings for our regional parks, that we can have access to the improvement of our parks? So are we really going after these grants aggressively like we should?
We do. So and we're happy to share with you, and actually we do. Just as a note, every time we apply for a grant, we ask for council to give us the permission to promise to match. And so you'll see if you go back through the last few years, we have at every cycle for the outdoor recreation and land protection, the ORLP, the LWAC, pretty much every type of federal and state grant application that is available every year in each cycle, Memphis Parks applies for. And it's been for a variety of parks, and we've been successful in some and unsuccessful in others. But every time, like we currently have a grant application that we're putting in for Gooch Park in North Memphis. We are currently awarded one for Audubon Park for the splash pad. We had one for Douglas for a splash pad, but we were awarded pre-COVID, and by the time we were able to get it under contract, it was post-COVID, and the price had doubled, so we actually ended up turning that back, but we're still going to build that splash pad in Douglas. And so again,
do you know when you're going to build it? Yeah.
If you guys approve the budget, we're going to start work on it this fall.
So you need to get some more grant money too.
Well, no. That's so again, we're actually right now we're under contract with the state for Audubon. So that means that we can't apply for that particular grant again until we're done. But what I would say is this: we apply for all of them, but you advocating for specific parks within your districts and connecting us with the caretakers and spokespeople for that so that we can use their advocacy is huge. And again, if there are opportunities that even if we're aware of it, make us aware of it again, because we want to make sure that we're applying for everything we can.
So yes, Douglas is part of 8-3, and so that is a huge concern of ours to make sure that we don't forget about Douglas community.
We're really excited about it. It's a 40-acre park, and we're really excited. It'll be the largest splash pad that we've built.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I yield the floor, Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Ford.
Thanks, Chair. I hate to put these people back on the spot, but I will since they're right there at the park. Valero.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Years ago, y'all don't know about that. Valero kind of so-called supposed to have about 7 acres of the park. They never did do anything. They gave it back to us, but they paid the city money. Okay? Can you tell me what happened to all that money?
I can tell you it's currently used every year to fund a zone or a crew that maintain Dahlstrom, MLK, I want to say one other park, but because of the size of those parks, there is a dedicated crew that is funded from the annual grant from Valero.
But for them to be a good neighbor to the ones across the street.
Yes, sir.
That district, the people that live over there, go back to them. They're very nice people.
I'm looking to the guy to my
Okay.
right. I think he's writing
Yeah.
stuff down.
Yeah, go back to them, and they may be able to help us with the pavilion and all the other things they did before. You know, and like I said, I don't think they would like to probably be part because, hey, especially with the neighborhood across, they've done quite a few things, and I think they may want to be part of trying to help do some other things too.
Yes, sir. It's a great suggestion.
Valero. Okay.
Thank you, Councilman. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Walker. No further questions. We'll go to item number 3, an ordinance renaming the Pine Hill Clubhouse in honor of Charles Hudson as the Charles Hudson Clubhouse in the city of Memphis, District 4, Super District 8. This is sponsored by Council members Swearington, Washington, and Ford Sr. The floor is yours, Councilman and Councilwoman.
We wanted to make a clarification that the name would be Cleophas and Charles Hudson Clubhouse in the city of Memphis. His father was the first African-American to tee, and the son, Charles, has contributed greatly with the golfing program, and he was the one that actually brought Tiger Woods to Memphis when we had that great tournament. And as a result, many students have received scholarships. So we are excited to be able to spearhead this, and we would like to invite all council members to sponsor as well.
Without exception, if anyone doesn't want to be a sponsor, you can let us know. Otherwise, we'll have everyone there. And I guess I need a motion in a second. Moved by Ford.
Second.
Seconded by Cooper Sutton. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair is an aye. That is unanimous and passes. We also have now item number 4 for Mr. Walker, a discussion on Memphis Parks golf course pricing. This was requested by administration and I believe Cooper Sutton. Please, Mr. Walker, the floor is yours.
Sure. Before we get into this, I will point out that next Wednesday at 3:30 p.m., after 3 readings, Hudson Clubhouse will actually have a ribbon cutting for the new facility at 3:30 at its new location. If you look up, I think most of the mapping systems now show the address on Mallory, but if you get an address that is not on Mallory, you are not going to the right place. You're going to be going to the back side of the golf course where the playground and basketball court is. But in any event, next Wednesday at 3:30, at 2:30. Thank you for the people. Invites were sent yesterday. I am not parroting words being said to me behind me. But in any event, we're really excited. We're really looking forward to it. It's an amazing facility, and we would love for all of you to be there. Okay, so Memphis Parks Golf. So real quickly, I want to just give you the historical context of the golf fees at City of Memphis golf courses. We currently have 7 golf courses, 4 18-hole golf courses, Fox Meadows, Audubon, Galloway, and Pine Hill, and 3 9-hole golf courses, the Overton Park 9, Riverside, and Whitehaven. Excuse me. This is the current pricing structure. And you can see it's across the board from $7 for 9 holes at Riverside and Whitehaven to on the weekday to $27 for an 18-hole round at Galloway and Pine Hill on the weekend. Fees as of February 1st, 2024. And I believe this is what sparked the conversation at the previous meeting. So wanted to put in context why the fees are the way they are, why the proposed fees will be what they will be. There are 2 golf courses, actually 3 total, that have undergone major renovations in the last 4 years. It began with the Overton Park 9, which was redone with grant funding from a group from the Overton Park Conservancy. And the pricing was adjusted when that, of course, was brought back online. Then the links at Pine Hill, which was completed last summer, although we're cutting the ribbon on the clubhouse, in a week. And then Audubon Golf Course, which is currently undergoing the grow-in before we bring that back open. It has been closed for the past 18 months. And so, looking at the pricing, I will tell you that, again, the thing that is probably the toughest to swallow, but based upon market research is accurate, is a $55 charge for greens fees for 18 holes on the weekend. And it's for a couple of reasons. One, that is still less than market rate. Many of the suburban golf courses, which there's a term which is privately owned, publicly playable. And when you think of that, what we're talking about is like Stonebridge in Lakeland. I can't remember the one. There's Miramichi. There's a couple down in North Mississippi, all of which are running about that $75 for an 18 hole on the weekend. The second reason is that we need to have variable pricing so that we push golfers to different golf courses because we have 7 of them. And we want to have consistent play at all 7 of them so that the wear and tear on them is spread evenly amongst them. Because really, at the end of the day, Mickey Barker, who I brought with me, will tell you that we have somewhere in the neighborhood of about 160,000 rounds that get played. Those, how they get divvied up, shifts all over the place based upon, how much people are enjoying one place, which place has new greens, which place has a special on BLTs in the clubhouse. I mean, there's a variety of reasons why people choose to play different golf courses, but one of the main drivers is going to be price. And so with $9 million being spent to upgrade Audubon, there's a couple of things that go along with that. Probably the thing that I should have jumped to at first, but I'm bad about prioritizing information here, is that last column on this spreadsheet, which is the maintenance cost increase associated with inflationary pressures, things like chemical prices going up, and the amount of labor that it takes in order to maintain these things. So Audubon has been closed for 18 months. We've had a skeleton crew operating out there during the grow-in just to make sure that everything was going fine, but we're going to have to staff back up once you start having 35,000 rounds of golf played out there. And so the increased maintenance cost is about $466,000. Assuming that we average $10 per head for the 35,000 rounds that we project to play out there, this will add about $350,000 worth of revenue. We're still going to have to supplement to the tune of about between $1.5 and $2 million golf as a whole. That's about what we do every year. It's what we've traditionally done in Memphis parks for the last 15 years. And it's about a 60% cost recovery, which means that we spend about $8 million. We get back about $6.5 million. The city subsidizes that 1.5 out of the general fund, 1.5 to 2. So a lot of words to say that this revenue or this price increase is both market rate. We're not charging more for a weekend rate than our competitors, and it will allow us to continue to subsidize the round of golf for the participants that use our golf courses on an annual basis at about the rate that we currently do. And then this will show you again how those rounds are spread out, and I'm so glad that it says 156,000 because sometimes I just make up numbers. So I'm really glad that it came out to the number that I said it would. But again, you can see here that we were at about 156,000 even with Audubon being closed for the last 12 months. So again, if you add 35,000 rounds back into that, although we will bring in revenue, we'll still lose more than we have. But as a city, I think we have decided that we want to have the resource of having nice, well-maintained golf courses and are willing to have it at the subsidization rate that we currently have it. And I think, I did want to highlight something that, again, I think somehow gets missed a lot of times. Kids under the age of 18 in Memphis play free at all golf courses. And it's funny because I'll have conversations with people and they will go, man, it'd be really cool if you could make golf cheaper for kids in Memphis. And we point out, we have. For the last 20 years, we have allowed anyone under the age of 18 to play free at our courses. We've also really pushed a program with the First Tee of Tennessee in Memphis at the Links at Whitehaven, where after the demise of Tennessee Golf, which was the predecessor to First Tee, there wasn't a dedicated nonprofit toward youth golf in Memphis. Our administrator helped with the Tennessee Golf Foundation bring it back to Memphis. And as a result, 2,500 kids have gotten lessons, learned to play the game, gotten to play in a competitive environment, all for free of charge. And again, we will continue to grow that program and expand it to other locations. It's just until Pine Hill opened up, Whitehaven was the only one with a driving range. And again, I've got some information about Austin Chin, who operates our youth golf clinics, and Mickey Barker, who is here to answer some questions. And I think this is just kind of our boilerplate. They both won awards highlighting their community involvement in the last year. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. We have a few questions. I think it's important that the public understand we are subsidizing this, and I take it we're going from 1.5 to 2 once we open back up Audubon, somewhere in that range.
Depending upon the number of rounds played,
Okay.
yes, sir.
Councilwoman Logan, Cooper Sutton, and then Councilwoman Green.
Thanks, Chair. I'd just like to know, the 1.5 going to 2 million that we supplement, how was it decided that we would supplement that?
Well, and actually, so unlike community centers or other things like that where we don't have cost recovery, I will tell you, it is our goal and aim to stay at the same level of subsidization that we are at today. We budget for worst case scenario, but with the increase in rounds that golf has seen across the country, our goal is to stay at the exact same level of subsidization that we're at today.
At one point, we were actually losing more money because we have fewer people playing golf, and I think COVID really cranked up golf again. It actually maybe saved the public game in our courses.
So golf and tennis, I'm really interested to look at, are there other sports that we could scale up and offer in our communities like we're doing, subsidizing or supplementing golf. What else, can we do that will pull in young people?
You'll see in our budget proposal this year that we actually have a very aggressive plan for increasing the staffing and programming provided by our athletics department. Because you're absolutely right. That is a key pathway toward changing outcomes in Memphis, is increasing the opportunities for athletics.
Yeah, the offerings that are at our parks, the way our parks look, the ease of access, the security, it's gonna be top of mind for me, because I know that we got to offer our children public opportunity because we don't have that private investment in like Liberty Land and all those other places. So making certain that we have a robust outdoor, indoor opportunity in public spaces for our youth is very important. And so looking at it holistically, what the offerings that we're doing, whether it's the Liberty Park thing that we, stadium that we built or facility that we built, how are we offering, say, basketball as a whole everywhere, baseball, golf, or like you said, tennis, and the other, because I know there's a tennis center at at Raleigh, but it's not utilized, it's not maximized. So if we could have that, hopefully you're bringing to us your way of maximizing all of the facilities and opportunities that we have in a holistic format with some graphics that we can push out and some opportunities for us to get involved in making certain that the community knows.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Cooper Sutton.
Yes, ma'am. So it's 55 based upon the fact that the costs are going to be so much more substantial there. I will say this, this is proposed because the course itself isn't opening until July. And so some of this is going to, I think there's still some flexibility and some willingness to move. What I didn't want to do was bring you something different than what you and I talked about. So I brought you the numbers that you and I talked about, but I've charged the staff internally to see if we can bring that number any closer to Galloway and Pine Hill. And I'll also tell you the reason Pine Hill's at 27 is because until the clubhouse opened up, although the tee sheets were much more full than they have traditionally been, we're still nowhere near capacity at Pine Hill. There's still plenty of availability for weekday and weekend rounds at Pine Hill.
It's one of the best golf values in the city.
All that's fine, but Pine Hill is brand new, and I'm looking at location and what $55 is unacceptable.
Okay.
And I think you and I talked about that.
Yes, ma'am.
Pine Hill is a brand new, smacking brand new, and it's 27. And so when the constituents who play golf, as you know, and especially African Americans and we talked about all that. I don't want to go through all that. But the concern is we're just gonna have to look at a balance. 40 is a max, I think, should be suitable.
And again, I've charged them with taking a look at that, and I think that we'll have the final number set after this. We wanted to have this meeting and this conversation to discuss with y'all, and then we wanted to take it back internally. But my assumption is that within the next week, we will send you back the revised price list with everything.
Thank you. It should not be on people's back because we want it to beautify
Yes,
and
ma'am.
upgrade and then we constantly put things on the people's back to pay for whatever desires, and we want to beautify. It should not be put on the backs of others and the people. And I think you and I talked about that, Nick. You and I have a good relationship.
Yes, ma'am.
And we talked about that, and so let's just try to work on those numbers.
Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank
I
you,
yield the floor.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
I think I'll defer.
Okay.
Even with the opportunities of the pricing, is that an opportunity for grants to come in and assist with that, with the pricing?
It's a little different, and I'll just tell you, this is one of the things that we're trying to combat and why we try to keep our pricing affordable is because outside of youth golf, which really First Tee is going to be the thing we're pushing in order to do that, golf still has a lot of equity issues. And so when you're going out to get grants, it's difficult to push golf because it's not viewed equitably, and rightly so. So we can, and again, if y'all come across anything, understand we scour the internet, we talk to people in the industry, we're always looking for things. But if you come across opportunities, please bring them to us. But yeah, I mean, we will look at grant opportunities for it. So yeah, I mean, a lot of talking around in circles to say, yeah,
Our
we'll
children
look at
need
it.
that exposure.
Yeah. Well, and we want people to feel comfortable there, and we want everybody to feel comfortable there.
May I ask? Chief
Yes,
Adams
I've
to
got
offer-
you in the queue, but I have 3 people in front of you. You go ahead and we'll do you now. Councilwoman Swain.
Okay, I'm finished. I just wanted to ask Chief Adams to offer some clarification. So whenever you feel it's
Okay, yes.
appropriate.
Can you clarify, Chief Adams?
So, one of the things, and so I'm not going to talk specifically about pricing, but I did want you all to consider one thing. When opening up items like golf and tennis, we price out user fees because you're going to have to consider you're either going to ask the users to pay or you're going to ask the taxpayers to pay. Taxpayers to pay who may not participate in the sport, or users to pay. Because, wait, Parks is a general funded entity. A general funded entity that receives taxpayer dollars. So, to Director Walker's point, there is a subsidy which is going to require qualified staff that we want to pay that knows how to maintain the facility, to keep up the investment that we made in the facility to extend the life of the facility, the chemicals, the raw materials that need. So we have to have a reasonable price to charge the user but it's gonna be a subsidy as well to the taxpayer. Or you put it all on the burden of the taxpayer. But that's your decision. But you gotta understand that the user, and I think that's what we're proposing, that the user does bear the cost, and we do so. One of the things that you guys that were here last body that we're talking about is we built a really nice facility out in Raleigh, but we did not put any maintenance cost into it. No maintenance. So the users that are there, they're complaining about failed pumps, amenities that we need to exchange, and we didn't put maintenance. And so now we are trying to right size that. Again, cost should be reasonable. User fees should be reasonable.
But somebody gotta pay.
But the users should pay. And then to Councilman Warren's point, if you go privately, they're gonna be willing to pay. So now, let's pay a reasonable fee, as Councilwoman Cooper Sutton mentioned, but it's gotta be reasonable. So I think that's one thing that you all should consider. So let's not escape the reasonableness and moving into the discussion of what's reasonable and balancing. Should the taxpayer who doesn't play the game bear this cost? And what should the user pay?
Thank you, Mr. Adams. I think next in the queue is Councilwoman Green.
Thank you for that. And Director, I was thinking, as you're saying you're taking this back to your team, I would like to plant some seeds I think I've mentioned before, but I just want to make sure that they are top of mind, especially as we're discussing equity and the potential for grants that could encourage equity. Perhaps there are grants out there or other ways for us to subsidize young professionals and have a young professional fee so that we can encourage. I want these to be places, I know, golf is a place where a lot of power deals are made, right? And we want to make sure that everybody has access to that space. And so young professionals, and I also think a consideration, just like the Y has, I think I've mentioned this before, an income-based sliding scale fee where people could fill out an application to have a reduced fee based on their income. Other people who might want to access the course, the cost could be a burden. I understand it's low, but I've talked before that the per capita income in the city is $31,600 per the last study. And so $55, $27, it could still be a burden. But we want them to have access to those conversations that happen on the golf course, right? And as we're thinking about equity, I would also suggest when you're marketing these materials, especially to the youth, that you don't forget our girls, and that we have some programs that are maybe gender specific, and that we encourage them to get into sports, because unfortunately we're seeing, especially in our teen girls, high rates of suicide and self-harm, and sports are a great way to boost their self-confidence. And it's, it doesn't matter whether it's soccer, softball, golf, just being able to be a part of a team and to get out there, that really has shown over and over again in study after study to help our girls. And so I would encourage you to do that. And again, that may be a space and a place where you can get a grant. You can go to Dick's Sporting Goods and you can say, we're having a summer camp just for girls who are playing golf. Can you help us fund it for a week? So those are places and spaces that I would just like for you to keep top of mind. I love that we are making it free to all kids. I wish there were billboards all over town that say, kids can golf free, because it's not something I knew, and I have 3 kids and live near some of these courses. So I would love for us to actively market that, but while we're thinking about how we adjust these fees, we can be intentional. We can make sure that there are people who can pay $55, and if they can, that's great. But there are people who can't, and they may be people who are just starting out in their career, or they may just be people who are never going to make that much in their career, but they still want this activity, and we should be thinking about that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Ford.
Thank you, Chair. Councilwoman Green. Mr. Walker, we had talked, I'm going back to Martin Luther King Park, the golf course. We had talked about something for the youth over there, okay? And I got to put my friends back in it. There's a nice neighbor, Valero, okay? They've done quite a bit, okay? And I think they wouldn't mind doing more. And if you need Councilwoman Green and myself to go with you, yes, we would be glad to, especially we need to add these girls.
That's right.
Very important, because if you look at some of the things that are going on, a lot of it is our young girls now. Okay, so we need them to do something. So you'll have both of us to go over there with you, and I don't think they would have a problem with being a good neighbor and help us with all these things, especially when it comes to the youth. Okay? Thank you for mentioning them girls, because, okay, that's right. We got to include them. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Ford. Councilwoman Cooper Sutton, and then we'll go to resolution item number 5.
Council Chairman Warren, I would like for Chief to say he's been trying, so I'll yield my time, some of my time to Chief.
Thank you.
We receive Councilwoman Green's suggestion for a sliding scale. We like to work with her and Councilman Ford's offer for soliciting donations, and we work with you, Councilwoman Cooper Sutton, to work on that sliding scale as well, to make sure that we come in with reasonable fees, not to ignore the fact that there needs to be user fees. So thank you for hearing us and then working with us to partner to make sure that we take care of our facilities, but making sure that we open up to the entire community as well. Thank you.
I'd just like to point out this is value of committee work. So very good. Now, resolution number 5 is a resolution to create 13 full-time positions for Memphis Parks in FY24 by redlining $722,678 in surplus part-time salary funding from the FY24 operating budget to full-time salaries. This ISL request is budget neutral and would not require additional funding. This is all council districts, sponsored by administration. Chief Walker, could you please go ahead?
Second. Move it.
Moved by Smiley, seconded by Swearingen.
I love to bring y'all things with the words budget neutral. I promise I really do.
Same 9 minutes.
Same 9 minutes, yeah. So real quickly, let me just kind of go through what we're trying to achieve here. So our goal is to, and I'll highlight how each of these things will help our operations. We want to add a human resources business partner so that we can hire people more efficiently, deal with labor issues more efficiently. Social media specialists, we have one person right now, Adriana, wherever she's hiding, who does all of our social media in addition to being the person who schedules all of our community engagement, in addition to being the person who responds to every upset email that comes to memphisparks.com. In addition to who comes down to council meetings, she needs full-time help in promoting things so that people are aware of things like free golf. 3 truck driver positions in park operations so that we can continue to get our equipment around and try to address our 17-day cutting cycle, which is our goal, not what we achieve. Our goal is to cut the parks every 2.5 weeks. We have to get better at that. An assistant director position so that every community center has both a full-time director and assistant director. 3 golf pro assistants, which is, the wording of that is weird. These will essentially help at the larger courses, make sure that we have a groundskeeper and another full-time person's in grounds so that operations that run 7 days a week don't require just one full-time employee to oversee the groundskeeping. Another additional aquatics coordinator so that every one of our indoor pools has a full-time staff member staffed at them. a group exercise coordinator to help fulfill the mission of a TDEC grant, which works on, not, that's the health one, so it's not TDEC. Yeah, what she said. TDOA, Tennessee Department of Health. Yeah, we have a diabetes grant that has helped us hire a manager who right now is putting on group fitness activities in every one of the community centers. We've circulated that information. They are free classes to help combat type 2 diabetes, which is a problem in our community. This position will have someone to just focus on those so that we can have more of those. A field director so that all of these nice new athletic facilities that we have built, the new soccer fields and multipurpose fields, we have someone who is actually able to go out on site and make sure that there are no issues, not just taking the 3 athletic specialists that we have and running them all over the city. And then lastly, the Play Your Park program has been one of our most successful programs. They have done that with a manager and 2 full-time employees and a grant-funded position. This will allow us to have a full complement of 4 people so that we can split up into 2 crews and do 2 Play Your Parks activities at the same time. Right now, we just can't do that. And then there is a breakdown of how we pay for it.
Thank you.
Essentially, decreasing part-time salaries and adding full-time salaries.
Yes, we are now an hour behind. And with questions, Councilwoman Walker and then Cooper Sutton.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes, could you go back to the previous slide?
Sure.
The group exercise coordinator, is
Yes, ma'am.
that for all ages?
It is. We've actually, so again, the primary focus is on adults and seniors, but that person will facilitate, again, we have grant dollars that allow us to put on those classes. So they're coordinating with the instructors that we are paying to come in and do the work. This will just allow that person to focus specifically on that part of the grant administration.
Okay, thank you. I yield the floor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Cooper Sutton.
I heard Chief talked about maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
And I see these are some proposed positions that, you know, need to be filled and are very important. And is any one of those positions, or do we have enough maintenance? Because what we don't want to do is be back where we are now, trying with dollars and trying to, and I don't hear anything about that. In maintenance, infrastructure, and everything that goes on in this city, we are so far behind, and we're like in a catch-up mode, trying to catch up. And then we spend so much money, and we're requesting for so much money. So how is this going to help maintain this, or is there a strategy or a plan in place? Because we cannot keep spending dollars, unnecessary dollars. That's just like having a car and not never getting the oil change. What issue are you gonna have?
There's 2 ways that we're gonna attack that. One is the truck driver positions here will again allow us to get equipment on site, which is honestly one of the biggest issues, is getting the equipment out to across the 300 square miles that we have. So that's how we're addressing it with this budget neutral. You'll see that in the parks budget that we're gonna present to you in a few weeks, that you will see that we're heavily investing in park operations to add more manpower that is not budget neutral, so that we can start to maintain some of these things at the level that they need to be maintained at. And it's not just about cutting grass. You're right. It's about fixing fences. It's fixing irrigation heads. It's putting in work orders with general services to do maintenance in the building. Yep. But we're asking for a not insubstantial increase to the park operations budget in the FY25 budget.
Okay, so that's, and that's what I needed to know, because every committee that comes up here has an infrastructure problem that we have not attended to properly. And I don't think anyone in this room would operate your homes the way we've operated this city, as far as handling and being responsible adults and being able to do what is right as far as maintaining. And so we must do right as far as taxpayers' dollars and be more responsible at handling the funding and the money and the budgets, and we're scrapping here and scrapping there. And so we need to be more good stewards over the things that we are in charge of and have been assigned to. So thank you. I yield the floor, Chairman.
Thank you, Councilwoman. All those in favor of item number 5, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Can we
And-
request same night minutes on it?
And with same night minutes, any objections? With same night minutes forward, and with that, we are now adjourned.
Thank you.
Alley, Councilman Carlisle, Councilman Colvett, Councilwoman Easter Thomas, Councilman Ford, Councilwoman Walker. Present. Chair Green.
Okay. Item 1 is a presentation on the Center for Economic Employment Opportunity, all council districts, requested by Chairman Smiley. Can our presenters please state your name and title for the record?
My name is Myletta Moore Dawson. I am the site director for Center for Employment Opportunities.
And my name is Patience Lewis Walker. I'm the Deputy Executive Director for Center for Employment Opportunities.
All right, and you can proceed with your presentation.
Great. What drive it is? Oh, great. Perfect.
While we're waiting, let the record reflect that Chairman Smiley is in the building.
All right, good morning. Like I said, my name is Myletta Moore Dawson. I am the site director for CEO. So why is CEO a necessary partner? So we typically work with individuals that have recently been released from incarceration. So we are a social enterprise nonprofit providing immediate, comprehensive employment services to those that are reentering our community. Individuals that come to CEO are incredibly motivated to work but face challenges in finding or maintaining employment. The majority or the bulk of our referrals come from TDOC, Tennessee Department of Corrections. And so we work with those that are through the probation and parole offices. Other reentry organizations that we work with are Shelby County Office of Reentry and Memphis Allies as well. A lot of the barriers that our justice impacted folks are faced with are limited education, no prior work experience, and of course those stigmatized convictions and long sentences. So with CEO, when they come home, the objective is for us to mitigate as many barriers as possible. So from there, individuals are then enrolled into transitional work crews where they receive a daily pay. And they receive daily training alongside CEO's comprehensive vocational and supportive services. Supportive services for us can encompass transportation to and from the work site. Also, we transport them to the work site with our vans. CEO invests participants' career goals and provides advanced training opportunities coupled with individualized case management. Those case management services are held once a week outside of those 4 days a week that they are on our work site crews. So the goal is returning citizens achieve upward mobility for themselves and their families, right? So we want to make sure that they are receiving as many opportunities as possible. So this is just to give you an example of some of the landscaping and blight crew work that we do. Currently, we are working in the Klondike Smoky City area. So this is just giving you some examples of what that looks like for us. So they are working with supervisors that are working hand in hand with our crews, right? Making sure that they're not hurting themselves or anything like that while they are working in the community. So some of the things that we are doing are brush removal, illegal dumping removal, light tree trimming, as well as any litter cleanup, debris removal, and of course, breaking down and removing fallen trees. And just making sure that the neighborhood, of course, looks nice. So transportation and guarantee fulfillment. So these are some of the benefits for employer partners. So like I was saying before, CEO transports crews to and from work sites on time every day. There's never a question in terms of while we're transporting individuals to the work site, they have that benefit. We take responsibility to ensure our employer partners have enough workers to meet their goals and performance standards. Train professional supervision. Every CEO crew is managed by a CEO site supervisor who provides on-site supervision and support. The site supervisor provides daily feedback and coaching to all participants, promoting ongoing professional development. Typically, a full crew is anywhere between 5 to 8 participants that work a day that are transported to the work site. Flexible and responsive work crews. So what this looks like is we are responsible in terms of making sure that it's flexible and able to adapt to employers' changing needs. CEO also has the ability to adjust the crew size and work hours to best meet labor needs as operations change or expand. So we're able to pivot and become flexible as needed. I want to add that we also take all of our equipment with us. So what does that look like? So like I mentioned before, we do a lot of the landscaping, right? So we have zero turns. We have trailers that we transport with our 15 passenger vans, and also all the equipment that's needed to beautify the community. Insurance, of course, is needed. CEO assumes all. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. We're
Yeah.
just running super far behind, and I don't mean to cut you off. We did
Yeah.
all get a copy of this presentation.
Yeah. Sure.
Could you jump to page 7 and tell us a little bit about the impact?
Sure, I'll start. So several years ago, CEO participated in a randomized control trial, or RCT. That study found that CEO's program was effective at reducing recidivism, particularly for the population that are deemed high risk, medium to high risk, and for those who were 90 days post-release. So that category, we showed an increase or a decrease in recidivism across arrest, convictions, and reincarceration that were all statistically significant. We are one of the only reentry employment organizations in the nation that have shown this level of effectiveness.
Okay, I have a couple of people in the queue, and so I want to get to them. Before I do that, let me, for the record, note that Councilman Ford, Councilwoman Cooper Sutton, Councilwoman Easter Thomas, Councilman Warren, and Councilman Spinoza are here. And I also want to say, I want to personally commend you on this work. It is something I am deeply passionate about. In my day job, it's something that I work really hard on. And I think it's very important that you work with people who are immediately after release. I've said before, and I'll say again, the number one time when people are most vulnerable to go back to prison is right when they get out of prison. And the number one time when they're most motivated not to go back to prison is right when they get out of prison. And if we can take a chance on them and give them a job, that's the number one way to reduce recidivism. And so what you are doing is very commendable and is crime fighting. It might not look like crime fighting, but I appreciate that. And you're kind of doubly doing that with what you're doing with blight remediation as well. So I think this work is excellent, and I am impressed by what I've seen in your presentation. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chairman Smiley.
All right, so thank you, Chair, for giving me an opportunity to speak to council. So the reason I wanted them to come today is, first of all, thank you for the work that you do. And the reason I wanted them to come today is we spent a lot of time talking about, ways that we can combat crime as a collective. And I think it's a very good time to have this conversation as we have District Attorney Steve Morrow in the building. We have Mr. Ernest Brooks in the building, who also serves as the policy advisor, Steve Morrow. We also have Stephanie Hill, the CEO of the juvenile courts in the building, as we talk about how we collectively can fight crime. And if you just look at this chart here, which is the chart talking about what we're doing to address recidivism, they're doing the good work. And, sometimes I try to think sometimes out the box and figure out how we can use some of the entities in our community who are doing good work. And I know one of the issues that we have is how do we address blight in our various districts? And a lot of times when we address blight, we have to pick up the phone, call someone in administration, and hope they come to our community. At some point, I'm gonna figure out how to do it. And I think Mr. Brooke Hyman, who likes to tell me no all the time, but who does a really good job, is gonna help me figure out how can we start a pilot program, council-driven, council-led, so that we can choose and speak specifically to the needs of our constituents. I think the role of this body, I say it all the time, is to bend to the will of the people, but also making sure we're meeting people where they are and going directly into our communities and addressing issues. So Ms. Hyman is going to give me a yes today at some point to figure out how we create this pilot program so that we can use the people who are doing work in the community, but also council can play a role in addressing crime. And if you don't believe me, look at the numbers. So that's the reason I had them here. I thought it'd be important so that we can hear this type of information. And with that, I yield the floor, and I'm letting you know something is coming. I'm letting you know something is coming. Because Ms. Hyman is going to be sure it does.
Thank you, Chairman Smiley. I'd like to note for the record that Councilwoman White has joined us, and I have next in the queue Councilwoman Walker.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. This is great, and I just underscore everything the chairman just said. And good to see you, Ms. Lewis Walker. My questions were, you said Klondike, Smoky City, is that area targeted for any particular reason?
Well, the way that we work is we run a social enterprise, and so it's a nonprofit business. So we fulfill a labor need that a partner may have. So Klondike, Smoky City identified a need, all of the redevelopment that's going on there, and hired us to be responsible for the beautification in that area. So we're able to serve people just based on those contracts. So right now in Memphis, we have the one contract. We're only able to serve about 75 or so people. If we are able to get more contracts to serve more communities, then we're able to serve more people. So we have more people on our waiting list than we can serve. The key to being able to serve them is really those relationships and that employer partnership that Myletta mentioned.
Okay, so I'll follow up with you on that offline. And then my other and final question, housing assistance. I get calls for housing for recently released incarcerated individuals. Do any of your partners provide housing?
So currently, I'm actively looking for that myself. That's one big thing. As soon as our folks come home, that's the first thing they're looking for. So most definitely, that's something that is always in the queue.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's one of the reasons we provide daily pay, to be able to meet that immediate need. So we have people who are able to secure, some sort of housing because we're paying them every single day. And so we're really trying to meet those most pressing needs when people are coming home, that keeps them connected.
And what is the payment method?
So they get a pay card, a Sky card, and every day, once at the end of their work shift, that money is uploaded. And so they can go to an ATM, they can go purchase things or whatever.
Okay, so there's no fee for them to use this card?
No, ma'am.
Okay, great. Thank you. I yield the floor.
Thank you. And I will say that the studies that show jobs are the number one way to stop recidivism. Number two is housing. So good point, Councilwoman Walker. I will note Councilwoman Swearingen Washington has joined us. And next in the queue, I have Ms. Cooper Sutton.
Well, it just seems like that my colleague, Councilwoman Walker always takes my questions. And I was really concerned about housing. I do the prison ministry with my church. And what I found out to be very interesting, I've been doing it for over 15 years, is the same people and the same, I deal with women, and they come back because they have to go back into the same environment. And if they had somewhere else to go other than that same environment, maybe something else different would happen. And I would love to talk with you offline because of your program. When these women are released, they need some type of financial stability so they won't have to go back to the pimp, or they won't have to go back to doing those things that they really don't want to do and just to survive. Just to know that you're doing this is phenomenal. The third thing is, Councilwoman Walker again took my question. So you're only in the Klondike, Smoky area, and how to get you more exposure because your numbers are speaking for itself. And what I found out very interesting here in Memphis is it's always these little hidden secrets that are really doing the great job that we don't find out about until later on. And so I echo what my colleagues have said, and just excited to know that you all exist. And hopefully the city can find some type of way, and other communities can find some type of way to partner with you.
Absolutely. When we launched in 2018, we launched with a contract with the Parks Department. And so we were contracted to do the maintenance and landscaping and litter abatement.
Parks and neighbors?
And yes.
Are y'all still?
No, not anymore. So what we saw, like when COVID happened, a lot of, across the nation, because we're in 31 cities across the United States, we just saw that, everything started to shut down and a lot of contracts were lost. We were just never able to really reconnect, to revisit that. And so, listening to the parks presentation today was just like, oh, this might be, a really good opportunity, to reengage around those conversations, because we are able to as my letter mentioned, we have all of our equipment, we have the crews, we have the number of people you need. We can deploy them, consistently. If we need to shift, we're nimble, we can do that. And so we do have a conversation later this week with Robert Connect, I believe. And so so we're hoping, one, we wanted today to let you guys know we're here and that we're doing this work, but we also want to re-engage in a meaningful way. And whether that's with the council directly, in other cities, we work with Public Works, with code enforcement, with parks. And so we're able to really provide a labor need as well that doesn't require a lot of hands-on with that department.
What cities are you engaged with? Are you partnering with now?
Oh, goodness.
I just need one or two.
I'll
That's
tell
all I
you the
need.
one. I oversee 12 of our offices. I'm here in Memphis, but so in the South, it's New Orleans, it's Memphis, Atlanta, Charlotte, Kentucky. We're in Oklahoma, OKC, Tulsa, Denver, Colorado Springs.
I get it, Miss Lewis.
In Pennsylvania, it's Philly.
So that's what I needed
Lots
to
of
know. Thank you. And we'll talk a little bit more off the cuff.
Yes.
And to just get a little bit more insight.
Yes, ma'am. That would be great.
Presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Chairwoman, I yield the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I think we have one more question in the queue. Councilwoman White?
Mine wasn't a question. I just was going to say one partner that immediately came to mind was Friday. I went and visited our community affairs, and they have a program, our 3 program, where they place young people who are not either in school or not working right now, and they put them in these programs. And I attended their graduation, and it was one of the most encouraging programs that I've seen in a long time. So I would implore you all to reach out to Director Boyce and see what kind of partnership can come of that.
Yes. We definitely work with Miss Williams, Miss Tamika. Yes.
Good,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you.
Wonderful.
Okay, I think we have heard from everybody. Just making sure.
Quick question.
Oh, Councilwoman
Yeah,
Warren. Do you call me Chairman?
Yes, Chair. Do y'all work with the GVIP program? Are you familiar with that?
Can you repeat it?
GVIP, Group Violence Intervention Plan.
Not locally.
Okay.
but
Good morning, everyone. It is now 10:50 a.m. I hereby call the Public Safety and Homeland Security Committee of the Memphis City Council to order. Ms. Cole, will you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Green. Councilwoman Swearingen Washington. Present. Councilwoman Walker. Present. Dr. Warren. Councilwoman Cooper Sutton. Present. Chairman Smiley. And Chair White.
Present.
And Councilman Ford. I'm so sorry. Oh, and Councilman Espinosa. And Councilwoman Green.
Thank you, all the council members, and thank you, Ms. Cole. On the agenda today, we have item number 1, a discussion regarding Shelby County's juvenile crime efforts and juvenile programs. All council districts requested by Councilwoman Swearingen Washington. Councilwoman Swearingen Washington, you may be recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I have asked for Dr. Hill to come to represent juvenile court as well as DA Mulroy to please share some insight. We have received numerous emails and phone calls regarding the lack or the need of supports for our youth. And we just need to get some clarity of what's going on and what we can do to support and be able to provide some type of information and for our constituents. So if you would please share at this time, if we could hear from DA, and then if we could hear please from Dr. Hill, we would appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you, Madam Chair, and the rest of the, is it on?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Steve Mulroy, District Attorney. Thank you to the committee, to the chair, and to the councilwoman for the invitation. I'm just going to try to go very quickly through my presentation. I was told a few minutes ago that originally I'd been told there was going to be a 10-minute presentation, but now you want me to do it in 5 minutes, which I'm happy to do. So if I rush through
brevity.
Yes, soul of wit. If that's, if it looks like I'm going quickly, that's why, and the PowerPoint will be available to you afterwards. I wanted to make sure that I also introduced Alicia Washington from my office, who is the head of our juvenile court prosecution unit, housed over in the juvenile court building. Also with me today in the gallery are 2 other members of our senior staff, the DA's office, Mr. Ernest Brooks and Mr. Chris Laro. The team consists of 7 prosecutors and 5 support staff that are housed over in juvenile court. That's how we encounter the juvenile, crime problem. I would say that it's useful to know that the vast majority of crimes, including violent crimes committed in Shelby County, are committed by people over 18. The latest data that we have showed that the youth crime rate is about 20% of the total crime rate, and it's broken down by different types of crimes, which I won't spend time going over. It's useful to know that crime is seasonal, including juvenile crime, and we see spikes. I'm not going to go over it in too much detail, and I think there's a little bit of difference between the juvenile court data and our own, but the main point here is that it is seasonal, and you see spikes, I think, as the spring starts to turn to summer and people are let out of school. There's an extra need for vigilance. I believe the takeaway here is we just need to make sure that we have services, particularly in those times when they're most vulnerable to turning to criminal activity. In particular, although it's the case that juvenile crime is a majority of the crime, we did see an increase in juvenile crime in a couple of discrete categories related to vehicles. So that's breaking into cars and stealing cars. If you take a look at the lines on this chart that are highlighted, we see that there's a higher number of charges when it comes to auto theft and auto burglary. You've already heard about the ways that, they have YouTube videos that are teaching people with certain models of cars how much easier it is to break into them. Because of that, we started a cars unit in our juvenile court, and it's focusing on under 18 defendants who have repeated auto-related charges, either auto theft or auto burglary, that are nonviolent. We want to catch them before they start to develop into carjacking and more violent cases. And so we identify them, we kind of prioritize them, hurry up our disposition, and make sure that we can quickly get a whole series of rehabilitative interventions, which are listed there on the chart. The idea is to move and get that done quickly. That's been up and running for a number of months now. We're hoping that that will help prevent a lot of these under 18 defendants from gravitating towards carjacking and other violent crimes. Adult transfers are always an issue. I will say that one of the things that needs to be known about adult transfers is that the data, both from around the country and in Shelby County, shows that very often, if you take someone under 18 and you transfer them to an adult prison, they are actually more likely to reoffend when they come out than if we hadn't done that. We're often sending them off to crime college. So in addition to them being at extra risk for sexual assault and suicide, in many ways, it's counterproductive from a public safety standpoint. Now, that doesn't mean that there are never occasions where it's appropriate to have adult transfer. I believe when there's a repeat violent criminal history and we have tried many types of rehabilitative interventions and nothing seems to be working, then I think it is appropriate, but it should be done as a last resort, not as a first instinct. There's a famous 2007 CDC study that showed a significant increase in recidivism if you did it indiscriminately. That is true in Tennessee as well. Specifically with Shelby, we learned prior to the time of my coming to office that we transferred more underage 18 defendants to criminal prisons, adult prisons. In Shelby County alone, more than all other counties combined, 95% of them were African American. When DOJ was here as part of the consent decree, the consent agreement, and they had a monitor that did a study, they showed that even if you control for offense level and even if you control for criminal history, so you're doing an apples to apples comparison, African American teens were 3 times more likely to be transferred and to be dealt in other ways. So there are racial disparities that need to be taken a look at. We do transfer, we definitely do a significant number of transfers because there are those situations where we've tried everything and it's time to do that. We're particularly focused on people who are actually pulling the triggers themselves as opposed to people who happen to just be riding along with someone else who pulled the trigger. Just to give you a sense of it, well, we made 84 transfer requests in 2023, which is a significant number. It's less than had been done in prior years, but it's still a significant number. They're disposed of in various ways. A lot of them are still pending. Sometimes we are able to actually settle those cases because of the threat of transfer. The last thing I'll mention is the notion of blended sentencing as a third alternative to the transfer versus juvenile court binary system that we have. Because right now, you have 2 choices. You either take someone who is an under 18 defendant and you transfer them to adult court, to adult prison, which has all those problems I mentioned, or you keep them in the juvenile court system where there's a broader array of rehabilitative services. However, we lose jurisdiction over them at age 19 under the law. So if you have, say, a 17-year-old person who's in that middle category, what do? If you keep them in the juvenile system, you only have 2 years to work with them, which is why many other states have adopted a third option, a middle ground option called blended sentencing, in which you keep them in the juvenile system, but you are able to keep jurisdiction over that defendant until age 24. So that it could be an extra period of incarceration or it could be an extra period of intensive probation with supervision, but it gives you that middle ground option at the discretion of the court and at the DA. Currently, there's bills pending in Tennessee to do that. Our office has supported it. The Crime Commission has supported it. It's got bipartisan support. Both Democratic and Republican state legislators have supported it. There's a version that is passed in the Senate, which is the version that we favor, which allows it to be a discretionary decision on the part of the DA to file the petition for blended sentencing in the juvenile court to make the final decision. There's another version that was in the House that made it mandatory without any consideration of the defendant's criminal history, no discretion for either the judge or the DA. We don't obviously favor that version. Right now, that blended sentencing proposal is quote unquote behind the budget, which means it may not get passed at all this year, but we certainly support it. And that is the quick 5-minute version, and I'm happy to defer to juvenile court and also take any questions that you have. Thank you.
Any council members in the queue?
So First of all, I want to thank both officers for being here today. We don't get questions like this very often, particularly from other elected officials. But I realize, our constituency doesn't really care about which entity is doing what. They just want us to figure out ways to address the issue. And okay, Brooke's not here to get me for asking this question. How can we help you all from a legislative perspective as members of the council, but more importantly as people who live within the city and want something to be done about juvenile crime and something to be done about crime overall?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councilman, and I'll, of course, let Dr. Hill speak after me, but just very, very briefly, and I'm glad you asked because this is something that I should have mentioned in my remarks. The demand for rehabilitative services that would actually help in cutting down on the recidivism rate for under 18 offenders far, far exceeds the supply. And, Ms. Washington can tell you from her own personal experience, case after case, where we think that a referral to proper services would really help with a particular defendant, but the services just aren't there. So anything that can be provided in terms of resources for those kinds of programs would be very, very helpful. One specific thing I'll give a shout out to, there's this place called the Pure Academy. You're familiar with it? Okay. Okay, and I want to thank you for funding it, and I believe we need 4 more Pure Academies in Memphis. And, I have made this point to the state legislature many times. They're doing a lot of interventions in what happens in Shelby County and directed at Shelby County and maybe overriding local control in many areas. But if we could just get some funding for a couple of more Pure Academies, I think that alone would be extremely useful.
Dr. Hill?
Thank you for having me. Dr. Stephanie Hill, I'm the Chief Administrative Officer for Shelby County Juvenile Court for the last 18 months. To pick up exactly where DA Mulroy left off, part of the challenge that we have, and I want to name a couple of things. One of our top priorities and learnings over the last 18 months is that youth crime and youth justice in cases as it relates to delinquency only accounts for about 26% of the work that we do at the court. The large majority of the work that we do at the court is actually child welfare related work. Our top case type is child support. There's about $1.1 billion in arrears. And so when we talk about child welfare, we're talking about child support, dependency and neglect, custody, visitation. And so we're talking about youth that, for whatever reason, the family and caregiver dynamic is not intact and or the resources are not in place for them to thrive. That is our number one case type. And what we know is 45 to 70% of youth that come into our system through child welfare will likely cross over to delinquency. Meaning, if you come into our system at 1 year old or 10 months old with a child welfare related issue, if we do not get the proper interventions in place, we will likely see you at 12 or 14 or 16 in our delinquency caseload. So that has been one of our number one real learnings and places where we're trying to make shifts in the work that we do. One of the primary things that we've done as a court is we've created a new position type that the county commission just funded in December called a youth development specialist. Because primarily the work of the court, and at this point we have about 130 employees and we're pushing toward about 168 employees at the court. Largely the work at the court is administrative, and the wonderful individuals at the court that have been doing the work primarily have been doing system-facing work. What that means is they've been processing paperwork, getting cases to court, getting cases resolved and moved through a system, as opposed to doing real family-facing and children-facing work. So that was one of the first things that we really needed to rectify, in addition to the fact that we have an extremely high turnover rate. So thinking about now bringing people into a position where they're paid a little bit higher and expected to have a higher expertise around youth development, around understanding the landscape of what is available, and to work directly with children and families. I know it sounds like a novel idea, but to work directly with the child and the family and come up with the best plan to keep them out of our system. So that's been a large shift in our work. the other piece to pick up on is around programs and resources. Again, the folks who work in the court, they will now work with the child and family when a family matter comes into the court. So this new position is both on the child welfare and on the delinquency side, on the youth justice side. But they will largely work with the family, but the actual services and programs are not based at the court. The folks who work in the court actually don't provide the services in the program. If a youth or a family needs mental health support, behavioral health support, or Pure Academy is not based at the court. That is a community-based organization that works in partnership with us, and right now we give them $0. So for our suite of options in terms of programs and services, we really inherited 2 contracts for services, two contracts, 2 organizations that we actually pay some money to, and those are primarily pretrial services on the delinquency side. For everyone else, they have to have their own money in order to provide the programs and services.
So, Dr. Hill, quick question for you, because I know we're extremely late. There's going to be a hospital mad at us if we don't keep moving. So, a couple things I do want to hear, and Judge Shugman, thank you for being here as well. I know you had a pretty busy morning, so we do appreciate your time. I'm trying to figure out, how do we help? I've heard, the issues that you're having. I heard, about community services, but how do we help you all be more effective in the work that you do? And the second thing, I know there was some work, there's some type of reassessing the what's it called, the detention assessment tool. Could you talk a little bit about that as well? And I'm out the queue after that. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Sure, thank you for your question. So the way the city can really help, the way our council members can help is help fund those community-based organizations that need support, or help, that's what we really need capacity around. Again, example, Pure, who you all said you all supported, that's wonderful, and we're happy to share our short list of organizations that
That's
we know.
what I was going to get to.
Yes, okay.
We need to know their short list, because we interact with the community in a different perspective, a different way that you all interact. So y'all are working every day with these different community organizations, and we have a grant season coming up. If there's any ones that you're particularly fond of that speak to the issues that we're having in our community around crime, it would be great if you share them with us. You hear Councilwoman Swearing Washington saying, please, Jesus.
Yes. So we'll absolutely share that short list. And naming, that's not the entirety of the list. We just went through a process to recertify all of our community stakeholders. We now have 5 different levels, because the other piece that happened is for the organizations that we weren't giving money to, that were working and we were referring children to, there was no two-way reporting structure. So to know that we refer to youth to you, were they successful? And the only way we would know if they met certain success criteria is, did they come back or didn't they come back? Where now we've really streamlined that process, so there's two-way reporting. So yes, we can share that list. I do want to respond to your question about the detention assessment tool also, and that we're currently going through an assessment with CJI, the Crime and Justice Institute. They did the same assessment in Davidson County and are largely responsible for the major reforms they've been able to make in Davidson County. They're 9 years ahead of us. But in that assessment, so one of the tools that is used to determine whether a youth is detained or released, right? Because some of that is based on the level of offense and some other criteria. So that tool that has been in place for years is a part of the assessment, but I can name, we're also working with Catalyze Justice to review how that tool is being used. And preliminarily, that tool is being overridden 50% of the time toward detention for youth that come into detention, and largely the majority of youth come in for 1 day or 2 days. So we need to reassess. If you're overriding a tool 50% of the time, then you really need to reassess, is it the tool, is it the fidelity of the tool? So we're in that process also. And I want to defer to Judge.
Thank you, Judge Tarek Sugarman, Juvenile Court. I thank you for this opportunity to present to you and your interest in working with the juvenile court system in order to give the families that we serve the resources they need. One of the things that has come to light of recent, with the 45 to 70% crossover we have with youth from our child welfare side to our delinquency side, When a child is referred to DCS on a indeterminate sentence, they decide when the child has been sufficiently rehabilitated and returned to the community. We don't have a reentry program. And so again, having those partners we can work with who have the tools, the ability, and the capacity to work on the reentry, getting a child first completing their education, continuing education if they choose to do that, or getting into the workforce by getting workforce training. With the partners in the community we will be working with, we'll have the opportunity to give those youth those opportunities to become integrated into society in a meaningful way. We're going to work with, of course, Shelby County adult reentry program to see how it's been effective in their intervention with adults released from our prison system. But more importantly, we have to cut off the pipeline that is developed in working with children and families from age 1 up. At some point, even on a prenatal basis. And I know, Councilwoman Logan, you were there this weekend when I talked about that. We want to have a safe babies court. We're 8th on the queue through the AOC, 8th county in line to get it. But because of our demographic size, our community need, hopefully we'll move up in that queue. With a safe babies court, we provide the interventions with families who are under-resourced, where the babies get the prenatal care and the mothers get the training that they need in order to raise healthy families. So these are the kind of services we want to provide, and I appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you, Judge Sugarman, and thank you, Dr. Hill. We now have Councilwoman Cooper Sutton in the queue.
Thank you, Chairwoman White. Dr. Hill, it is absolutely amazing to see you and Judge again, and the amazing work that you are all doing. One of the comments that was made, and I was going to ask again, the program, your short list of programs that you have that we could connect with to see as far as funding. The second thing is, and I've just been saying this, I don't know if you know Jeff, I can't think of his name. He's out of New York. And he has said the same thing with the study, and Memphis City Schools brought him here. We're gonna have to get to the root cause of things before we get to where we are now, and then we are reactionary to what happened. We gotta start at birth. We gotta start at prenatal, making sure because of the inequalities and the equity that is not provided, and this is what we're seeing. You even said something about the child support system. You deal with more of that in your system than really dealing with what the real issue is. And if we don't get to the root cause and really start focusing on it and quit putting Band-Aids on it, there's a program that you're doing now at Mount Vernon, I think, and an amazing program. I've been following you, for a minute, and what you're doing and the impact that you're making in the community. We talk about Memphis. Memphis is predominantly Black, so you're going to see a lot of Black issues. This is what Memphis is made of. But getting to what you said, 1 month to 10-month infant, starting there. It's called Seed to Success. It's a program. What's Jeff? Jeff Canada. Jeff Canada. Do you know who Jeff Canada is?
Yeah, he's the founder of the Harlem Children's Zone.
Yes.
And so I am familiar with that model from my prior life as a school administrator. And so thank you also for mentioning through Uplift Westwood in my free time, we have a youth program. It's called Westwood Stewardship Program, and it's the Children's Defense Fund Freedom School model. It's in its 4th summer. It's a literacy-based program. We started it mostly with rising 8th and 9th graders because of that importance of the transition from 8th to 9th grade. And now because the children come back every single summer, we have everything from 6th grade through 12th grade in that program, and we host it at Mount Vernon. Those youth, we actually pay them a stipend to be in the program, but the Children's Defense Fund model, we need more Children's Defense Funds. That's just a sidebar in Memphis and Shelby County because it's a phenomenal program. It's in 49 cities. Go to Children's Defense Fund, look up the Freedom School program. It's literacy-based. It's not teaching the phonics or phonetics of reading. It's having children fall in love with reading in a civic engagement, social justice space. So thank you for that moment of personal.
Yes, but we're going to have, and I thank you, Chairman Smiley, for asking what we can do as a city council. And until we deal with the root cause, you can everybody Band-Aid and everything. We're going to have to start with when we find out that she is pregnant, and it starts in the womb, just like you said. And so until we start there, these are babies that eventually don't even have to end up where they are and end up what they're doing. We know poverty exists. Let's address it. That's what this city can do. That's what this community can do. Address what the real issues are. And we're going to continue to see that because we are a predominantly Black city. And so what you do see is you see our faces committing these crimes, doing these hideous things. And so when you go and we look at gun crimes, I looked up when I was in visiting, I'm going to cut it off because I know we got somewhere to be. I think it's 18 to 20 years old, 20 that you can have a gun. Am I right or wrong? Okay, 18 up. But it's permitless. And so what are we doing as far as attacking those issues or those babies that we're finding that having those guns that do not meet the criteria that it says? And I think if you're 18 years older or been discharged from the military, it states something as in that nature. Am I right or wrong?
Councilwoman, it used to be that you needed an exception for the military back when the law was that you had to be 21 and over. But thanks to a federal court lawsuit that the state attorney general settled, now it's 18 and up.
Okay. So we are all being reactionaries before things happen instead of dealing with the root cause. And Dr. Hill is doing a phenomenal work. Judge Sugarman, talking with him, sitting down, communicating with him. It's going to take every one of us in this city to do what we're supposed to do and be held accountable. The police gets there after the fact. So quit pointing your finger at the police. They get there after the fact and after it's done. So whatever we can do, I echo what Chairman Smiley said, we can do on our part. Get us that list of those supporters. Grant season is coming up, and we will be more than happy. All of us have districts, Super 8 districts. We need to fund where the work is really being done and not giving them to people that we like or who we know or because of and name recognition. Let's do it where the work is really being done and support the people who are really doing the work.
You got an amen
I yield the
back
floor.
I do have an amen corner, and before I go to the next councilwoman that's in the queue, what I did want to say is, and I think this is what, and thank you, Councilwoman Cooper Sutton. Thank you. The question I have is in terms of, because it's kind of like we need, and we all know that we need better collaboration, and we all know that we need a plan, and that this plan is going to not only include the district attorney's office, juvenile court, it's going to include council, commission, the mayors. Who do you all foresee as leading that charge? Like, for instance, I went and visited Nashville, and I know that you've been in contact with Judge Calloway, Judge Sugarman, and we don't have a place. We don't have a center. We don't have a really unified plan. We do have some services, but we're not really able to see the full effectiveness of those services because we know it starts in the womb, and we know that it starts with pre-K and those things. So we know we need collaboration with Memphis City Schools. We need collaboration with the police department and the sheriff's department. Who do we see is leading that charge? Is it the city mayor? Is it the county mayor? Is it juvenile court? We have meetings and we have task force in these things, but who do we see saying, what are we gonna do in terms of pulling together these nonprofits, identifying them, what we have on the table, what are our issues, how do we need to fill in our gaps, and keep that as an ongoing and continuous communication as if it is a larger task force? Who do we see is leading that charge?
We realized early on that all of our community players, our school system, the juvenile court, our law enforcement, we have been in silos. And in order to break down those silos, we have to communicate with them. I met with Chief Davis early on, probably the second week of my administration, about how we work more collaboratively to the extent that we can. As a judicial system, we have certain restrictions. We cannot engage with law enforcement directly, but I would turn to Dr. Hill to let her address how we lead this, and I say we. It can't be one single entity. It has to have something where the community has a buy-in to this. Obviously, the community has a voice in this, and we represent that voice. But we have to have a centralized plan of action, and so I'll let Dr. Hill address that.
Yeah, I'll say from the court standpoint, what we have done is definitely work much more collaboratively. We even have a collaborative meeting now where we bring together the other people that are heavily involved. not only just the district attorney, but the PD, the juvenile defender panel, the school system. We're hoping to invite law enforcement into that meeting so that we can work and plan to get collectively. Now, what we can do with the information that we have, that we're working through with our data and our learnings, is we can share largely what our learnings are. I would say in terms of community-based initiatives, I'm hopeful that what comes out of like the More for Memphis initiative are some real learnings that are helpful, because there are some dollars and cents attached to it, and a lot of work has gone into that effort over quite a long time. And so I'm hopeful, rather than creating redundancy, we can take some of the things that are existing and really get the right people at the table to be involved in those things. But I will say we are absolutely working as collaboratively as we can. We actually have Davidson County coming in for our Lunch and Learn this month. I'm happy to send that invitation to all of you all. If you want to hear some of the learnings that they've had from, they were sitting in the same place we were sitting when we came in